Hey, it is currently 4 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Board of Public Works and Utilities. We'll start with roll call. Mayor Kim Smith,
Here.
Alder Dan Stevens,
Present.
Jared Holter,
Here.
Sabrina Steger.
Here.
I also would like to note that in attendance, we have Alder Diane Wolf and Alder Larry Jurassic. Is there anyone else on the called in that I should notify?
Stan.
Dan, well, he's a member. Yeah, okay. And then, all right, let's move on to item number 2, consideration and action on minutes from the previous meeting.
I move to approve. Second.
Move to approve by Mayor Smith, seconded by Sabrina Steger. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 3 is public input. Anyone wishing to provide public input will be limited to 3 minutes. Please provide your name and your address. We are on first call and I already see that we have someone stepping up. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Diane Wolf, Second District Alderwoman with the City of Onalaska, 910 Orchid Place. I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank our city engineer, Kevin Schubert, for the ride-along for the capital improvement projects last week. It was very informative. And I guess it's the second year we've done this. And quite frankly, I don't know why we haven't done it in the past, but it's just very informative. And also I'd like to add that I really appreciate, I think it's also the second year that the booklet that we get just more informative. It's just so much easier to follow along, whether you're a member or not a member, coupled with the minutes. So just want to say thank you to everyone. It was just a lot easier process, I think. Thank you.
Anyone else for public input?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead and start again. That's fine.
Sorry, Grant Morgan. I live at 562 Prawley Road. I'm here again supporting item number 32, extending the retaining wall on Esther along Esther Drive. As stated at the last meeting, I feel that this is a safety concern with the grade of that property right there. Where there have been times that either I have fallen trying to mow it, slipping on the wet grass, or the mower itself has actually even rolled in instances where I feel this is something that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Second call for public input. Third and final call for public input. Is there anyone online?
No.
No. Public input is closed. Item number 4, snowmobile trail for the 2024-25 season. Jared.
Thank you. In your packet tonight, you do have the proposed snowmobile route through the city. This is the same route that has been approved for a number of years now. It's actually probably into the decades now. This route, it does come back every year for approval. From the Public Works Department, we haven't had any complaints. I did check with the police chief and he has not had any complaints neither. So I see no reason to not approve the snowmobile route for the winter season. We do have representatives from the Cooley Snowdrifters, which is the club that maintains the route through the city here, if you have any questions.
I move to approve the snowmobile route for the 2024-2025 season.
I'll second.
Move to approve by Mayor Smith, seconded by Alder Stevens. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, the 2025 capital improvements budget. So this point, we're going to be trying to get a more reasonable list for us to work with before going into next month, again, where we review it again. I know when we met last, I had put out a request hoping that each of us coming in today would do some homework and individually come down to a list that was less than or equal to 4.5 million with as an individual target, with a board target next month of between 3.5 to 4 million as recommended by our finance director. So I'm hoping that you all have done that. As we go through in the past, the ways I'm open to whatever people want to do for changes. But in the past, the way we've done this, especially on the first look, is we kind of just went line by line and then we'd have a quick discussion on whether we agree it needs to stay unanimously or it should go unanimously. And if it's not unanimous, then we'll have a discussion. I know that we all individually can have our own priorities and constraints. I just like to vocalize what I have used year by year. All of these are a priority, but they're also in rank order for me. And that was when I looked at this individually myself. Number one is public safety. Number two is maintaining what we have, not taking on additional cost at the unintended consequence of letting what we already have deteriorate. Number three is maximizing our outside funding. Number four is honoring prior commitments. And then number five is the revenue generating projects. Those are the five biggest priorities for myself. If there's other folks on the board who think that there are other things we really need to consider on this, I would certainly like to, before we move in, open up some discussion on that. And then I can go into constraints that I also would like to identify for myself. Is anyone who want to add additional priorities? Yeah, Jared.
Okay, I'm just gonna, some of this is from my public works director hat, some of it's as a board member or whatever, but couple of things, as Alder Wolf had pointed out, our city engineer, Kevin Schubert, taken quite a few people on a tour of the public works projects, CARCS projects, the fire facilities, different areas. So it's always good if you've got an understanding, you can see stuff in person a little bit. One of the other things I included in your packet tonight was an interesting article that I had read from a public works literature on the use of the strategic plan to guide capital improvements decisions. And I thought that was interesting in the fact that we've redone our comprehensive plan and the actual city strategic plan in the last year. So I think those are things that looking from a big high level are things that could help guide us too on as Alder Knott stated that, you know, he laid out some priorities. Those are also things that, one of the things I look at, like in the list, we've included a pedestrian plan. And that was included in the comprehensive plan and part of the strategic plan was everybody likes to be able to walk through the community and everything. So those things all tie together eventually also. So then one of the other things as we get going, I think, you know, we're always trying to go from a large number to a smaller number. So it's one of those where when we have large numbers that we're dealing with in the budget, you know, you really got to look at large projects. So now you're looking at large projects. Well, one of the large projects that's always in there is whether we do city utility work, upgrades to our sanitary sewer infrastructure, water infrastructure, and storm sewer infrastructure. So as Kevin did on the tour, he mentioned that with today's prices, a lot of these utility projects, they don't go under $1 million anymore. So in our proposed budget tonight, we've got two different projects, 7th and Well with 7th and Pierce and Well Street, which I look at as a combined product for just under $1 million, and 6th Avenue North, which is just under over $1 million. And in the realm of utility projects, these are not big utility projects. They look like large numbers when you're looking at your budget, but when you put them into the context of looking at for instance, water main replacement through the city, I went through the last 6 years of utility projects. We did not do one in 24. And then 23 through 19, we replaced 2.5 miles of water main. At that rate, it's going to take us 219 years to replace all the water main in the city. So at that pace, it's not going to be today's problem. It's going to be someone in the future's problem. And some of that is, we had a lot of development in the 60s and 70s, so some of it's not ready yet. But we do have projects that are ready that should be done. So we don't want to get to the point where we're really backlogged in 15, 20, 30 years. So that's one of those things that, you know, do we do it now? Do we do it later? And the fact that the utilities are meant to not be competing against fire trucks and playground projects and things like that, we should be looking at the utilities. Is it the right thing for the utility to do? Can the utility fund it? Those should be the governing factors of whether we do these projects. So Just a side note, street paving, we've done a great job at street paving. I think basically the streets that need to be paved right now all need infrastructure under them. So a lot of the streets that need street paving, they really need infrastructure under them. And then also we have 6 either grant projects or Wisconsin DOT projects in the list under Public Works that their schedules are driven by the grants and by the outside agencies that are doing the projects. So, you know, it's a shame to give up the grants or not apply for grants, but sometimes that drives our capital improvements budget too. So that's just some of the things I looked at as a high level for the Public Works Department. But I think that strategic plan, you know, we invested so much time in those plans that those should really be documents we should be referring to and we're looking at the list. So thank you.
Okay. Any other priorities that any of the other board members thinks that we should be really considering, that haven't been mentioned?
Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
So I think my approach was a little different. I know in the past, when we go down line by line, as you stated, everything isn't a priority. Everything is worthy and really ought to be done. But I just psychologically, then we're on a basis where, you know, we have to decide kind of what has to be cut. So I actually kind of approached this differently and have kind of what I thought was like kind of a baseline budget of what we have to do. I actually came in at like 2.5 million with the idea that then we would approach it as what can we add? And then it's just a different kind of viewpoint. And I was amazed at how little I was able to get this. And that's not discounting any particular project or anything. And that is trying to show some level of acknowledgement for, you know, most departments would be able to get something. By and large, Public Works is going to be the lion's share of this, but I'm not saying anybody has to follow my agenda, but it almost might be. It's probably too late now, but like if I think it'd be interesting if we all had priorities that matched, that were kind of under a certain limit, that we could maybe kind of take those off the board and then look at, okay, what's our next sortie of priorities, but. That's just a suggestion. You know, I think we can get there. I think we can get to under 4.5 million if today, but those are just my thoughts.
Thank you. Sabrina.
I was just going to add, just as we're going through this, there was a change in the state statutes in 2024 that we no longer have to short-term borrow, so we won't do state trust fund loans anymore. So now everything can be bonded under promissory notes for up to 20 years. We are trying to work that back. I think we're back to, 17 years was our last bond, but just wanted everyone to keep that in mind tonight. I know in the past we've had a bucket of our short-term borrowing and what we can bond for. Just know that really anything on this list we can bond for. And I may make recommendations as we're going through that. We utilize our equipment replacement fund with some things. Some of the smaller projects, I think we could do that. But again, it's at the end of the day, it's your decision, but just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Sabrina. Yeah, and that overall, that's really good news. It simplifies the process in many ways. And one way it can complicate it too, can complicate it if we're not careful. Some of the things that we need to purchase on an annual basis inside of the city will clearly never last 20 years. And if we're replacing them over a long period of time with 20-year bonds, knowing they only last, I'm going to give an example, 10, we're going to dig ourselves into a serious hole within about 30 years or less. So it's still something to consider. We do, even though it's good news that we don't have to borrow at a higher interest rate for a short-term bond. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, we need to really take a good look then at that equipment replacement fund and what we really should be prioritizing on that. And I think one of the things that we might want to consider would be, is this something that is going to clearly not make 20 years and we'll still be owing money on it when it's done? So, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, and then I did have two constraints I would like to throw out on the table too. And the first one I don't think is going to be controversial at all. And that's that as we go forward with a initial this month and then next month, a final recommendation, that we need to maintain that bond rating. So if we're going to exceed the recommended $4 million cap, $3.5 to $4 million cap that Sabrina has provided for us, understand if we exceed it and how much we exceed it by could put that into a certain amount of question. Along with my second constraint is I'd like to, as much as possible, have discussions that identify all possibilities so that we avoid expenditures that would result in unintended future costs. So those are two of my constraints. Is there anything else anyone else would like to add for consideration? Jared, go ahead.
I just think from the utility side, the $3.5 to $4 million number, we have to either be looking at future, and this is where I look at our finance director to look at, are we going to try to do a mortgage revenue bond in the future? And if we are, that number is fine. But if we're not, or don't have any inclination to do that, 4 million is not enough to keep up. I'm just, and I understand, but I'm just want to make sure everybody knows that from a utility standpoint of infrastructure in the ground and everything like that, we could take the whole 3.5 million and just be done and not worry about anything else, just doing utility projects, just utility related expenses anyway. And just want to make sure we understand that we'll have to be creative or we're going to start applying for DNR loans and those have other stipulations that we have to go through. So there's other ways to fund it, but I just want to make sure we understand that's, you know, there's needs there that are separate from, and sometimes those needs aren't discussed as much as the playground equipment. And I'm not saying the playground equipment is not important, but we're talking things that are our core duties of providing safe water and removal of sewerage. And, you know, I look at what happened in North Carolina. You can't have enough storm sewer piping in the ground or be designed for anything. So I mean, it's just a matter of those things too. So.
Yeah, I understand. I think especially as we move forward and as a city, we're going to have to look at other ways on how we fund things as well, because I totally agree. You know, the constraints we have with the 4 million, which are real, if we don't come out with more ingenuity on how we do things, I guess, yeah, it's only a matter of time before we dig that hole too, especially with utilities and paving, I would argue too. I know you said we're good now, but those are very expensive projects. So anyone else? All right. Let's get to work, I guess. And again, I'm hoping that what's going to happen is on probably the vast majority of these, we're going to have a certain amount of agreement. And then on a minority of these, we won't, and that's okay. We get next month to try to do the real hard work of making those final cuts. So starting with number 1, pavement maintenance, and I'll make my very brief pitch. To me, that falls under priority 2 for me personally, which is maintaining what we have. So I personally support line item number 1. Is there anybody else who has comments or has a countervailing view?
I also support line item 1.
Line item 1, yes.
Yep.
I support that as well.
And that's the best money we spend as far as keeping our streets up. I would fund that before we'd actually fund any new paving that we have in the list. I think that's the reason you see that our streets are where they're at today from the 30 years of investment that's been put into them.
Anyone else have a different view? All right. Are you going to keep a running tally there, Sabrina?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
Then item number 2, which is kind of similar, and that's the sidewalk program. We got replacement, which is under A for $175,000, miscellaneous repairs for $50,000, and then a city park sidewalk installation for ADA access, which is going to be public safety for the folks who require ADA facilities. Personally, I'm for funding all 3 of those fully. Is there any other views?
Do you want me to, I'm assuming I don't want to break decorum. Do you want me to just speak whenever or should I?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I was looking to concentrate on the repairs. So in my kind of first salvo, I just had, item B. And if there's money left over, then, we might prioritize on the next round, other maintenance, but I think fixing what needs to be fixed,
Okay.
now so I just had the 50, but
Well, let's focus on B then real quick, and then Jared will go
I
to.
would say A is the program that we actually do the sidewalk repairs through the city that we mark with the orange, the pink dots you'll see. We do 1/7 of the city every year, and that's for liability. We keep ourselves. That's the reason our sidewalks are in a good condition is because we go through 1/7 of the city each year, and we just had a sidewalk, come in just in the last month that, by doing that, we keep our liability. So I really think item A, the sidewalk replacement program has to stay in the list.
Well,
what is the difference between A and B then? Could you?
B is miscellaneous repairs throughout the city that like we get a curb needs to be repaired or a apron or just miscellaneous repairs that are spread out throughout the city. Citizen requests, we get something that needs to be done. We don't have any other spot to charge those things to. So that's part of the miscellaneous concrete project.
Okay, well, the way I want to do this, I'm really looking for consensus first, because that's the easy win. As far as, our time here, if we're all agreeing, there's no reason to discuss it. So let's just look at item number 2B. So Dan says he would like to fund 2B. I say I'd like to fund 2B. Is there anyone here who would not like to do 2B? All right, so let's go ahead and add that, Sabrina, the 50,000 in. So now we'll go back to 2A and C. My view on this, Dan, is that the sidewalk replacement strategy, on myself personally, I'd be willing to bend a little bit on how much, if we need to reduce that slightly or
We
something like
can't.
that. You can't?
Yeah.
No?
And
Either all or
in
nothing?
order to do it, you can't do a half. We can't extend it, so we do like 12 years. It's
Okay.
what it costs to do the whole zone, and it just,
Okay,
and actually in that amount of work, we're already scraping by, barely having enough to get it done.
okay.
So
Sabrina.
Stephen, just
Sorry.
to clarify, I'm sorry, but I was taking item B as being the most egregious. So I would actually move that 50,000 and into the 175 and maybe reprioritize towards that.
Oh, I understood it the other way. I'm sorry.
I did, but after Jared kind of clarified that for me, that
Okay,
I was thinking B was worse sidewalk than A. And I understand keeping up the merits of the 1/7 for liability purposes.
well, this is consensus, is not voting, so easy to go back and do it again here. So, Jared, do you agree then the A is addressing the more egregious issues?
I would agree with that, but we still need to have some sort of funding to do the miscellaneous. Even 50,000 doesn't get us very far, really. I mean,
Okay, so I'll go back. Let's go to 2A with that new understanding. Is there anyone who would not like to, who does not see a need to fund 2A? Sabrina?
I do support 2A. I just wanted to add the sidewalk replacement program. Our citizens do pay us back. So it's kind of revenue generated in a way because they do pay interest on it if they don't pay for it right away.
yeah,
So I would fully support that we keep this.
As a whole?
we only get probably 40% of it back now because the city has changed policy with the boulevard trees. So the boulevard, a lot of the repairs we do are boulevard trees. So 40 to 50% of it we get back, just to clarify,
Okay.
we don't get all of it back. We get.
It's still a significant amount. Yeah,
Correct.
that makes sense. Dan, does that, with the understanding that we get upwards of 40% of that back on an annual basis, does that change your views on A and B?
I'm in favor of A at this point. If we had to hold B to a second round, I'd be tentative on that, but the keeping up on the sidewalks is important, and that's a core part of our maintenance, and I don't want to fall off that schedule. So,
Well, even without the 40%, I personally was still in support of A and B. Is there about the 40% kickback that we know that we get approximately? That just solidifies my own personal position more. Mayor, what do you think?
I support items A and B. I'd like item C to be in a gray area at this point.
I'm sorry about item C.
I'd like that to be in a gray area at
You want
this
to carry
point.
it over till next month, or you want to just get rid of it now?
I'll defer to the consensus.
Okay. Sabrina, you said you supported A and B.
I do.
And Jared, I know you do, and I think I do too. So as a minimum, Dan, I think we'll carry both of those over until next month and we'll look at them again. So, under
Yeah,
C,
I'm good.
I know we're trying to get the city to be more ADA compliant. Is this,
Part of what I would offer is we have an ADA plan. Dan can speak to this a little bit more because he actually administered the plan because a lot of it was buildings focused. But the ADA plan has millions of dollars of changes that can be made. And this is one of the areas that we have found that we can invest in that plan and show that we are doing something toward that plan. We must continue to do items in that plan. Dan budgets for a few things through the facilities budget, equipment budget to do things like door openers and things like that. But at the current rate in that plan, we're not going to get the plan done anytime within a short amount of time. It's,
Yeah. So it's constant progress, though, is what you're looking for. Yeah, I'm with them, I don't know. I early on thought we should keep it, but for the same
Steven?
reason that, yes, go ahead.
So my understanding with ADA, that there has to be continual progress, and that doesn't mean that has to be in every department. And I'm thinking what we've got going on at the community center, a lot of that's going to be changed to be ADA compliant. So as long as we can point to some things that we are doing to make the city more accessible, like there's no way we can do it all in 1 year. So based on that, knowing that we have other stuff in the works that's going to happen regardless, I would agree with the mayor and keep this on a gray area.
Okay, so are we saying then, I mean, I'm open to that now that I understand with that the Omni Center would, or excuse me, the community center would also meet moving forward?
correct. Community center is going to be a huge ADA. That's part of what drove that project. It's going to be a huge ADA improvement for our seniors.
Okay. I'm open to striking it. What do you think, Mayor? You're okay with that?
Yeah, I'll go with the committee. I mean, nobody wants to say that we don't want to do an ADA accessibility project because we do want to do the project. We just know we have a lot of items and we unfortunately have to make very difficult decisions. So.
All right, let's go ahead and strike that. Of course, it can be added.
Rena, do we want to have motions just to pick out items?
Yes, please.
Oh, we do? Okay. All right. I'll move to remove item 1C, excuse me.
It's 2C.
2C, item 2C from the 2025 capital improvements projects.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, which is the East Avenue sidewalk connection.
Once again, this is a grant project, so if we want to continue with the grant that we're going to receive, about $350,000 toward the project, we got to go, it's just got to move forward.
Yeah, so we're talking the $55,000. That's for the design, so
Yep.
that later on we can get $350,000.
Correct.
Is there anyone who thinks that should be removed? All right, let's go and keep that on for now. Item number 4 is street paving for Arnwood Place and Cooley Court. This is a road that is Pacer 2.3. I know in the previous 2 years, actually, yeah, previous 3 years, this has been on the list, and I have in some years been the ones to recommend removing it. But I think this is the year we probably need to do it. 2.3 is getting awful darn low. Anyone else?
I would support that as well. Kevin did do a wonderful job on the tour and just seeing that street.
Yeah.
It needs to be done.
I don't have it included, but this was in that area that I kind of left open for based on priorities.
Mayor?
Yeah, I'm fine with leaving it in for now, but I think we might end up by the end, we might have to take it out.
Okay, so that'll move forward to next month. Then next is street paving for Maplewood, which is a Paisley rating of 3.0. I do not have that in my list for retaining for the 2025 budget. Is there anyone else who has differing views?
I'll move to remove item 5.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to item number 6, Theater Road and East Main Street traffic signal renovation. Obviously, this is a project that's been ongoing for a while, which includes a lot of outside funding as well. In this case, it looks like other sources are just shy of 350,000. Our cost is 92,923.
This one's out for bid with the state in February, so we don't have any, there is no choice.
Roger that. And I have it being kept anyway, so, okay. So you're saying that's already committed anyway?
Yep.
Okay, so no discussion there. Next is item number 7. South 157 and Main Street, that's a Wisconsin Department of Transportation Project 5991. This is for design specifically on the tour, made clear to me. Thank you, Kevin, with that tour, by the way. This is for utilities so that in the subsequent year of 2026, the state is going to come in and repave that road. Is that
So 2028 is when they're gonna actually replace the pavement on the street, but their environmental process takes 18 months. We have to have the plans done before they really do that. So, and the right-of-way process. So we really have to fund that going forward. Once again, this is another one, sanitary sewer and water utility, with a need in our utility, and that's the reason we have chargers, and that's the reason we do the utility. So there's really we actually approved MSA to perform this work last month, so it has to be done. Otherwise, you're gonna wait another 60 years to, and then the utilities on that street will be 140 years old.
Is there anyone who does not have this on their list?
I don't have it on my list, but based off of what Jared said, then sounds like we should include it.
So we'll move forward then on that. All right, so next we have item number 8, which is the Theater Road PH intersection with Roundabout. That's also one that's been underway for a while.
So this is a local let, does not have a state let, so it is locally controlled. So we do not have a contractual year that has to be met for next year, but there's in the grant funding, it does have to be constructed within, I think, 2 or 3 years. Part of it is though, when we went through the design and we obtained all of the easements for the project, they're all written for next year. So if we do not move forward with the project, we're going to go back to all those landowners and renegotiate all those easements for the project. We've got the fee title land, the title to the lands we had to acquire that we're permanently going to have, but we do not have the fee title. If I was going to do one thing, in my opinion, I would not do any paving and do this project. It would be more in my opinion, as your director of public works, trying to vision for what we would be doing is we wouldn't do any paving this year, but we would do the traffic signal. And as part of these projects too, we are going to do some paving. They're going to mill almost all of Theater Road as part of the 2 projects, except for where the intersection is. So we will get some new pavement out of these projects. So, but I understand this is going to be one that once again, it's $500,000. It's a larger project. We are getting 385,000 toward it. We competitively went into the grant process against others to get this grant. So we demonstrated a need to the statewide committee and they granted us the monies for it. But I understand that is a project it's going to come down to the end in my opinion, but.
Well, I guess I misunderstood then. from discussions I had come to the conclusion that this could delay 1 year without any significant impact. You're saying that is not true?
We have more time to complete the project under the grant requirements, but we've obtained all the easements for the project. We would have to go back out and hire, we hired that work done. We'd have to go back out and because those easements those temporary easements for construction will run out at the end of 25.
So if I understand, there'll be additional cost.
There'll be an additional cost it won't be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we will have a cost. Correct.
Then I would recommend that we keep it on.
I agree. I'd like
Okay.
to keep this in. I also think that when we went through the design process, we did some public communication and
Correct.
I think the public has an expectation that this project is going to happen, which is going to be inconvenient, but we've talked about it. So I hate to have it delay and then have an increased impact on people besides the financial aspect is more favorable to continue this year.
I did think it was an interesting side note. I was on the LAPC public comment website for their upcoming transportation plan. And they've got an interactive map. And the map has a few things. It's not overly like a lot of comments on it yet. But interestingly enough, this intersection already had one of the comments on that map from a citizen. So
Okay. We'll move
Yeah,
that
and
forward.
let me just add, if you haven't seen that or gotten a link to it, make sure that you reach out to us. Maybe we can have Rick share it in his weekly thing because they are accepting comments via the survey right now for the LAPC.
All right, we'll move that forward to next month too then. Number 9 is the street paving Wells Street from Oak Avenue North. I do not have that on my keep list. Again, we can go around and talk with that too, so.
So I look at 9 and 10 as interconnected projects, even though the one is listed as a paving project. Number 9 has some water and storm sewer improvements. They're relatively small, but it would be beneficial to do that with 10 at the same time. That's the reason when you add those two together, they come up to just under $1 million. I think this comes back to the discussion that I had earlier is 9 and 10, and then the 6th Avenue North project. Really, it's going to be either it's going to be a quick night and we're going to fund utility projects and we can retire early, or I don't know how they stay in the list. So,
So, yeah, I had on my list for keeping 10 and because of the 2.3 Paiser rating and removing 9, but you're saying that if we're going to do either one, we really should do both, is that what you're saying?
they really should get done at the same time. I mean, you gotta remember a phaser rating of 3 and even 3 is not good.
Well, I know that, but we have to prioritize.
I mean,
Well, we need to prioritize.
and I get that, but I mean, you know, once again, I come back to almost all the streets that are poorly rated in the city. When you look at our phaser rating, even all the 2s and 3s, almost all of them have old utilities underneath. So, you know, this street here, even with that is, you know.
I just don't think that we can do both 8 and 9 and 10. It strikes me as kind of an either or scenario.
I have to agree with that, just by the sums, yeah.
And as much as I've just gave you my utilities hat, and we need to do water and sewer projects, I truly believe, because as the mayor stated, we've participated in public comment, secured the design, secured the easements. It was a lengthy project, even though we didn't even design it in-house. Kevin can attest to this, that we spent our staff time into that project. It'd just be a good one, especially with the discretionary money, because put it this way, if I want to apply for more discretionary money, the city has zero chance we haven't spent what we're getting. And right now, there are discretionary dollars out there for at least another 2 years that hopefully maybe we have another chance for.
Especially for designed projects.
Oh,
So I'm with it. I think until we decide how to fund the utility side of things, we concentrate on doing number 8.
Mayor?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I had a note that 9 and 10 I felt went together, but I just think due to the situation of having to fund more things besides just public works, I'll move that we remove items 9 and 10 at this time.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item number 11 is the bucket boom truck, which again, this is the third year it's been requested, so that
This-
vehicle is just getting older and
this-
older.
This is a safety hazard. It has to be, if I have anything in the, I mean, with this way, it's so bad I give up pavement maintenance money to get the bucket truck
I
done.
have
I mean,
this on
it's
my
just,
approval
it's a safety hazard.
Is there anyone who does not want this to move forward next month? Sabrina?
Is this something that could be funded in equipment replacement?
It could.
So
If-
maybe we just kind of put an asterisk by it potentially.
So have it move forward next month and you all take a look and see if there are other fund sources available?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jared, what is the life expectancy of a boom truck?
We bought the one that we have now. It was approximately 15 years old and we've had it for 15 years. We're trying to, we've had it for 5 years longer than we should have had it. We're, as you can see from the budget, we budgeted a lower amount thinking we could buy a used one and we just can't find a used one that is really of a value and safety standard that we are. So if we buy a new one, I would expect it would be in our fleet for 25 years, at least 20. But we use this.
So if we were to put it in the CI, I mean, this is, it would not be inappropriate to put this in the capital improvements budget and bond it for 20 years. If, I mean, I don't have a problem. Actually, I like the equipment replacement idea, but as Stephen pointed out earlier, there's some things we know aren't going to make it 20 years. And I feel funny bonding for that long on that, but this might be where we could do it either way.
In my opinion, this is a vehicle that lasts longer than, let's say, a squad car. It's something that will last the 20 years. But I would, it'd just be it still, we should look at I can look at the options with our finance director and see what we come up with.
Right. Sounds like we're gonna move this forward. All right.
An asterisk.
Number 12 is Beverly Drive Storm Sewer Outfall Repairs Pipe Replacement. This is the third year this has been on this list. And again, it's just prioritizing, folks. It's not that I don't think it's important, but at this point, I actually have this on, it is not on my list. I suspect there will be others with differing views. So. No? You're, okay, not even, Jared, you're not reasonable.
Well, if I brought you a picture of the pipe, you'd probably gasp. It's missing the bottom, but it's in a spot where it's not, it's in the backyard slope, just isn't.
I had this included. in the list.
45,000, you need 10 million. So it's probably going to get funded through a larger, hopefully mortgage revenue bond or some other, we're going to figure it out. So.
So let it go for now. All right, I'll move to strike item number 12. I'm not hearing a second, so.
Oh, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes. Okay, item number 13.
We're committed to this project for the development agreement for the Highway 16 area. So we have to fund the additional cost. When we originally budgeted it, we did not realize that there was going to be rock excavation along 16. So it came in higher than what we thought.
Okay. Is there anyone who wants to discuss otherwise? All right, let's move that forward. Item number 14, street reconstruction of East Plaza Park, Pierce Road. This one's confusing because there is no Hazer rating because it had been private property, is my understanding.
It's a gravel street right now. It's a gravel alley. It looks more like an alley, I guess. You didn't make it out there on the tour because the tour wasn't long enough, but as part of the development of the Nikolai Farm area and the XL development, we will be taking over. It's been platted as public right away in there, and we will be extending the water main, the developer will be extending the water main through this area, but the city will put in the sanitary sewer and then pave the street. We're planning on a rural cross section, so it won't have any curb and gutter because it only serves 4 properties along there. This project, we are now anticipating that the Nikolai, the Excel project will not be till 2026 for occupancy. So
This can delay it.
this is a project, it has to be done to get it up to city standards. But the other half of the project that's going to tie into not going to be done to 2026. So I think it could wait a year.
Right, I'll move to strike item number 14.
Second,
Just with the understanding that it's going to become a priority then the next year.
Yeah, I got it.
understood.
So I'll,
13 or 14?
14.
14.
Just
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I,
Right.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 15, street reconstruction of Sixth Avenue North. And to Locust Street, repaving Bluebird Court, 6 to Quincy Street, pays are 3.0. So the 3rd year this has been on. This is one of those very large dollar items again that Jared has been saying we're gonna keep getting hit with more. Boy, I don't have this on my list because I just don't see how, I mean, I came in with, actually blew my own guidance by 100,000. I said, come in at 4.5. I came at 4.6 with my own list. And there's no way I could add on another $1 million. Jared, what are your comments?
Eventually we got to find a way. I understand what it is as today's way. Probably shouldn't make a motion and vote no.
I'm sorry? Oh,
I mean, we're gonna have to find the funding mechanism, but I understand with what we have for constraints today at this time, we're not gonna fit it in. Unless you're gonna, like I said, unless the back half of the list, you're gonna cut it, you're gonna get down to item 30 and you're gonna be say, well, we're at 3.5, we're at 3.8 million and we're done.
I'll move that we remove it.
I'll second.
motion to remove by Mayor, seconded by Alder Stevens. Discussion. Yes, Alder Wolf, come on up. Oh, I'm sorry, you got a speaker there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Jared, in your memo, you talked about that.
The DNR it's been on the list.
Thank you.
So the DNR in their code states that we're not supposed to have any water main serving the city under 6 inches in diameter. That has been on our sanitary survey for the almost 30 years I've been with the city. In the 90s and 2000s, we replaced many miles of 4-inch water main. This is one of the last sections in the city that has 4-inch water main that is under a street. Main Street's one of the other ones. This one and Main Street are 2 of the last ones. So it is listed as a deficiency in our sanitary survey every year. But it's not the DNR as long as we've got we still got sufficient, the fire flow still meets 500 gallons per minute ISO standards. So, and it's a relatively quarter-mile section. So we got bigger mains on each end. So I don't think it's necessarily a safety hazard for fire flows, but it is a deficiency, a noted deficiency by the DNR. And that's what.
And thank you for that, Jared. So as a follow-up to what you just stated, can I assume that they're going to bring that up in a yearly report until we do fix it then?
It's actually every 3 years and that we do the sanitary survey. It's triannual. And they basically look at the map, they look at our PSC report and it lists length of mains by diameter. And if they see anything, they'll list it on there as a deficiency. So we're going to continue to have it until we get Main Street done in 2028. So we have made enough great strides on this over the past 30 years that the DNR review engineer we've changed engineers now too, but they have said you've done a good job.
Thank you.
And we still have a project that will continue to move us forward with Main Street.
Correct. That won't be done till 2028 though. So
Yeah, but we're
Right.
discussing it now.
Yep. I just come back to, you got at the current pace of the last 6 years, it's 219 years to replace water mains that are meant to last 100.
Got it. Okay, well, I will move to strike item number 15.
We already did. We already,
Yeah.
yep,
Oh, we already
yep,
did?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I think we even
I think we
voted.
voted on it.
Did we?
Yeah, we voted on it. Yep.
We didn't vote? Okay.
We did?
We made a motion, but we didn't
Yep.
vote on it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 16, we're getting to the cemetery where we had discussions on this in just the past few months that we're pretty much committed to this. And that's to start the initial construction on is for phase 1. Is there anyone who believes we should be removing that?
I think we need to keep it in its entirety at this moment.
I agree. All right, let's move that forward. Item number 17, street paving, North Kinney Cooley Road, Woodman's entrance to 600 feet southeast.
This one has actually got a local road improvement grant also toward it. It's a relatively small amount. That grant is starting to sunset. We actually had it, we actually kept it off the list for a couple of years because it wasn't in terrible shape. But that grant is actually going to sunset in 2026, and their sunset is June 1st of 2026 by the fiscal year. So
Yeah,
so
so
we really need to get that one. I know it's a Pazer of 4, but that sees a lot of truck traffic, serves the La Crosse International Business Park and Woodman's and everything like that.
well, that's also got other considerations in it, being the fact that we do have other sources that would be contributing to that, to where the city in the long run would be saving $43,000 towards it. Paying 53,000, paying 43,000. I'm certainly more than happy to keep that in.
I
Anyone?
think it needs to stay in
Agreed.
at this point. I mean,
Okay. Next, Sand Lake Road area infrastructure improvements, Riders Club Road. You got A through G on this. Now, here's one where I don't personally see an issue with keeping them all because there's no amount needing to be borrowed. Unless I'm missing.
So, yes, so the TIF is actually bringing in increment, and the increment is building. With the development out there, there should be enough increment coming in to pay for what we've got with the design of the stormwater facilities that are needed in the area to further the development and the street lighting that you see in here. Once we get to 2026 and 27, when we start looking at actually installing stormwater improvements, you're probably going to be in the realm of a $3 million to $4 million project that then we're going to have to look at how we're going to fund it. And because the TIF will not have enough increment yet for it, but we'll need to hurdle that at a future time. But I think Sabrina would agree that the increment is coming in fast enough that we can cover these costs currently.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely cover those two costs at this time.
Okay. Is there anyone who wants to argue what should be removed? All right, move that forward. That's 18 in its entirety. Number 19, Crossing Meadow Drive, SS to 12th Avenue South, paving, Pazer 4.0. I do not have this on my approval. I see that as just for design, so I could be missing something.
So this is actually the STP urban grant that we received. That phaser rating is a 4, but with the amount of truck traffic that it sees from the La Crosse Industrial Park and the quick trip trucks and everything like that going through it, it's going to deteriorate rapidly. This will actually be 2028 construction, so the funding for the design is local. We have 379,000 slated toward the construction. We are going to look at intersection improvements at Double S and 12th as at a preliminary level and see what they come back as. But for sure, this would at a minimum repave the street through there. So we really need to fund this to keep the process going, because
Okay,
at this pace, funding it this year, you're going to get built in 2028.
okay. I have no problem leaving it on until next month for sure. Is there anyone else who wants to argue otherwise?
I did not have it included, but if we want to leave it in for the first round, that's fine.
Okay. All right, item number 20, the street sweeper and mechanical pickup. This is the second year it's on, a very high dollar item. I do not have this on my approval list.
I moved to
I
strike.
know when you put this in to remove it.
Okay,
It's 20 years old. If you've ever seen the street sweeper in operation during chip seal or even just during spring cleanup when we're trying to get debris off the road, there's a lot of mechanical parts. It's just it's just hard to maintain. It's at the end of its service life. It's a 2005. It's going to take us a year to get. It's just like whether it's dump trucks or fire trucks or police cars. You can't just call up and get one when you get it funded. So, it really needs, the mechanic really has this in here, we really probably should have put it in 5 years ago and let it get kicked out for 5 years before we got to this point, but we try and get every year we can out of the equipment we have. So, if you look at any other municipality and ask anybody that you got 20 years out of a street sweeper, they're gonna look at you and say, wow, you must have maintained it well. So. And once again, it's a stormwater utility, so I understand we gotta have a number, but the stormwater utility is one that's gonna pay the debt service. Can the stormwater utility pay the debt service? The ERU is gonna have to go up 50 cents per year to probably pay the debt service, or 40 cents.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of my question is, why isn't it listed under that?
But it's listed under stormwater, but then it's still in the outer band, because we use the number to include all the utilities and everything, where if we did the utility projects and didn't fund general fund items, we'd be paying more, then your general fund debt service would go down, but you'd be paying more of the utilities. So the utility is going to pay this debt service, not the general fund.
You mentioned mortgage revenue bonds. Is that something that could fit into?
It could actually, and one of the things in 2026, we've actually got a mortgage revenue bond that's falling off the books that'll be fully paid off. So we really should be looking at probably another mortgage revenue bond to fund some of these utility projects, underground utility projects, and some of this equipment that's coming up. We've got a new sewer truck in the 5-year outlay that is going to be 600,000. So there's all kinds of items that we've slated as needs that will have to get addressed. So I've talked.
My concern is that this is like what, maybe 1/8 of the total CIP budget, and like it just seems like too big of a ticket item in light of everything else that we have going on. And that's, if we could explore other funding mechanisms, that might be better for our whole process.
there's no way to contract this?
No, we looked at that 25 years ago, and we actually bid it out 25 years ago, and around 20 years ago. And it was, and it's part of our MS4 DNR permit, so it has to be done. We got to perform these duties to make our stormwater permit. And we also use it on the chip seal project otherwise we could hire the county and pay them 50,000 a year to do our sweeping.
I'm gonna suggest that we'll leave it in for now with the idea that it's not 100%.
Sabrina?
I would recommend keeping it in for now as well. As I mentioned last month in our meeting, I definitely think we have to look at a mortgage revenue bond. I'd mentioned that, Jared and I had chatted, and hopefully we can bring forward a plan, like a 5-year plan with like an ability to fund all of the projects potentially and what that might be. And then in the future, obviously, we would still approve each year, but we have some sort of plan to fund the majority of the projects that are on the list. So that will be forthcoming. So just to keep that in mind, that a mortgage revenue bond is probably our best option with a lot of the utility projects as well.
Okay. With that, I say, go ahead and let's move it forward to next month then. But what are we up to at this point?
Too much.
I guess about 2.6. I don't know, I've been keeping track.
$2,747,936.
0.75, okay. All right, let's go ahead and keep it on until we can, we'll have to make some harder decisions next month, but you might have other options for funding it too. All right, North Kinney Cooley Sanitary Lift Station, I do not have that on mine for this year.
I'll make a motion to remove item 21. It's, I can explain once, so many seconds.
Okay, I'll second.
That development has not come forward and so I think we can wait with that project.
Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 22, the East Main Street drainage improvements. This will be the second year that's on the list. I do not have that on my move forward list at this point. Any
I'll
other
move to strike it.
Second.
move to strike item number 22 by Alder Stevens, seconded by Mayor Smith. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. We are moving on to the item number 23. Mid-size single axle flatbed truck with landscape dump box. I have this on my move forward list because again, we're not having to borrow anything for that unless I'm misreading this somehow.
We actually include the chassis for that in the approved or the proposed equipment budget.
Anyone want to argue to remove? All right, moving on. Item number 24. Looks at South 16 off street path PH to South Kinney.
In translation, looks like we lost the outer column
What's that?
because it should be 220,000 in the outer column for construction for amount needed by borrowing. Is it
I
there?
have that in mind.
Oh, it must
I have
not.
2,220,000 is for construction, yes.
Okay.
And
When I print it out. I got an earlier version.
okay, got it.
So is that correct? I have 220 for right away and then 100,000 for construction.
The 220,000 be for construction of that path.
Yeah, we've already borrowed 25,000
For
for the design and 50,000 for a right of way.
Correct.
This is the next phase.
I would like to leave this in for now.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 25, off-street trail paving maintenance, paving of Cross Meadows Path. This is a new addition. I do not have this on my move forward list. Is there anyone who has differing views?
I'll move to strike.
Second.
All right, move to strike item number 25 by Alder Stevens, seconded by Mayor Smith. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 26, street paving Skyview Addition. Kelly Place, Cliffview Avenue from Westwood Drive to Riders Club Road, Grove Street from Pine Street to Cliffview and Ridgeview Drive. Phaser of 3.4. Again, I do not have this on my move forward list.
Move to strike.
Second.
Move to strike by Mayor Smith, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 27, Irvin Street pedestrian crossing improvements, including rapid flashing beacon. Again, this is a safety issue. I don't currently have it on my move forward, but I don't feel comfortable about that either. I guess, can I get some more input, I guess, from Public Works?
Yeah, and yeah, Jared, my question is like, what prompted this intersection to be the one that you're selecting this time? I know we've been through this annually.
Yeah, just the use of Dash Park with the various activities that are down there. We receive
Oh, yeah, I
a
know.
couple calls. You know, Kevin receives them, I receive them about people voicing concerns of crossing there. You know, it is a higher volume street with the activities going between Great River Landing, Dash Park, but we do have the traffic signal that's a block away. You have a controlled intersection. It's a block away. The reason this cost is a little bit higher is because we would actually design it with a pedestrian refuge in the center. So basically it would be a curbed off section. You could go halfway across the street, stop if you weren't able to make it all the way across with the rapid flashing beacons. So there's more activities and more construction work than there are some of the other ones that we've proposed over the years.
And then can I also ask you, and I know the answer to this question, but just for the record, is there ADA accessibility incorporated in there, for example, for people with vision impairment?
I would say,
I thought you said all the new ones had that.
the rapid flashing beacons.
Yeah, that they had the.
We
audio.
do at the traffic signals, like at the traffic signal on
Okay.
12th Avenue, when we did that, we did countdown timers. Because there's a countdown timer for when it's going to switch, and we're actually going to do that at the intersection at East Main Street and Theater as part of that project, but there's no timer per se on a rapid flashing beacon. There is a timer that we have it flash for so many seconds, but
So is there any way for a visually impaired person to know that the beacon was even there?
it does beep. Once you hit the button, it beeps. So
Okay.
it does let you know that you've activated it with a sound cue, and then you know that you can go across, but I don't know of any kind of countdown timer or anything. Kevin, go ahead.
This, I know now why I did not have it on my approval list. I'm recalling this now from our tour. This is a situation of, it's almost like a user's choice that is theirs. At most, you have 3/4 of a very short block to go up to where the traffic light with full service crossing assistance is there. But there are some who don't want to make that 3/4 short block to do that and would rather just out of convenience go at the other side of the block, which this is a fairly substantial cost. I'm very clear on now why I had this off. This is a pretty substantial cost for not much really benefit. I mean, we're saving folks from having to travel an additional, I don't know, 120 feet maybe. It couldn't be much more than that to go up to the service, to the traffic light on Main. As opposed to putting in a $65,000 project to save them that walk. I don't know, or walk or travel. Yes, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so getting back to maybe the mayor's question first there, right? The rapid flashing pedestrian beacons do not have any audible detection for somebody visually impaired, right? We do have some of the newer signal lights do have that. So the signal light at Main Street and Sand Lake Road, when we redid that, when you actually push the button and the light changes, there's actually a voice that would come on and say, walk, right? Well, you can walk. So that signal light has something like you were talking about, Mayor.
Okay.
The rapid flashing beacons do not, right? For somebody that could be visually impaired and needs an audible sound, right? That was something like it, as Alder pointed out on the tour. I gave a thing, that intersection up there, I believe does have that, or the state could add something where somebody who,
Where the street light is.
where the street light is, somebody who's hearing impaired that can't, or visually impaired couldn't stop for the beacon. At the signal light, they will get a voice activated thing from the equipment up there saying safe to walk in the direction, right, which would assist them. But the rapid flashing beacons do not have any thing like that currently.
I just think the cost exceeds the benefit. 3/4 short block to get to the safe crossing right now. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clearing that up, Kevin, because I did
Yeah.
not remember, like now that you're explaining it, I didn't remember it correctly. So thank you for that. If we take it off, I understand. But I just also want to say that one of the issues we have with events at Dash Park is the proximity of a restroom and the proximity of parking. And so a lot of people do need to park across the street. So there's people crossing, and especially older and less mobile people, they have a long ways to try to go over to the Great River Landing to use a restroom or to get to their car. And in those cases, sometimes having to walk from one end of the block or the other could be significant for them. I understand we're making a lot of hard choices. But I just want to make sure that we understand that all of the aspects when we're taking it out. Thank you.
So Chair, if I could speak.
Yeah, please.
So I do a lot of events at Dash Park, and I understand the point. The crosswalk is a block away. But based off of where the people are and then where they park, I've witnessed repeatedly week after week, people en masse don't choose to go walk that. And it does get used extensively, after events, and not just events that I happen to be running. So just based off of, if we put this in the context of what do people actually use, especially when you're having events that end at dusk time when visibility gets low, I think it does become a safety issue. And we have had events where, especially if it was larger, I was in contact with Chief, and they were gracious enough to provide police support to, have to cross people at that time when we thought it might have been perhaps a little bit more dicey or a little bit more active in that area. Having something like the flashy lights would maybe eliminate the need for something like that in the future. So there could be other, allocations of resources in the future. I understand that we don't have money for everything, but this is my preference would be to see that go forward.
Well, we can move it forward to next month. Yeah, personally, I think I'll probably end up opposing it myself, but of course, we all each only get one vote, so it doesn't matter. We'll figure out what it is. But yeah, okay, let's go ahead and keep it on. We'll move it forward. All right, next is the item number 28, the French Road Lacrosse Country Club Water Main Crossing Design.
So we are looking at trying to secure an easement across the Lacrosse Country Club for a future water main project to tie in the Crestwood zone and the Country Club High Zone service areas. By DNR rule, we have to have two sources of supply, and currently we only have one. So we're trying to look at possibly delaying the reservoir project in the French Road area if we can get interconnected with the Country Club zone. This would also offer redundancy. If either booster station went out, then they would be cross-connected. One thing I wanted to see is, Sabrina, would we haven't bid this out yet. Can we do that under other sources and use the water utility, just operating accounts to pay for that? We have done that in the past on some of our design projects.
I'm fine with that.
That was a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So can we
Move
Maybe-
it to other funding source.
move it to other sources of 75,000?
Funded through other sources. We just keep it on, but it's not part of our borrowing, so. All right, item number 29 is the Abbey Road Westerly Extension.
This is on the Abbey Road area, behind the Abbey Road Apartments. There's future developable land that's currently in the township. This is a city right-of-way that the right-of-way has been secured, but there's no extension of utilities to the city limit line. This would be a project that would further future development opportunities, but we do not have any concrete requests for that at this time, but it would help further development in that area.
Jared, would that be development for the city of Onalaska or for the town?
Yeah, it would annex to if someone was going to develop it, they would annex it to they would not have to, but I would assume that the annexation with the sewer and water would be a higher level development where they could put more homes on it.
Yeah, it's my understanding though, like you said, we don't have anyone even bidding on it, so I don't see I personally don't see any need to keep this for this year.
I agree. I move to strike.
And Jared, couldn't we, if something were developing, we could do it at that point?
If we had a dire request, we could bring
Theoretically.
it to the council and
Okay.
try and do something. Maybe Sabrina's got a.
Well, I'll go ahead and second because we have a motion, so I'll second it to Dan Stevens's motion. We're still under discussion then. Sabrina, go ahead.
Thank you. Jared, is this something that if we did do a mortgage revenue bond, we could fit that in?
that could be part of the mortgage revenue bond. That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, for now, though, we have a motion from Dan Stevens, seconded myself to strike.
So just for discussion, if it does go to mortgage, I mean, if we strike it now, it can still go to mortgage revenue bond, right?
Correct. We're gonna, yeah. Just under discussion too, just to be clear with this, the whole mortgage revenue bond thing. The mortgage revenue bond would pay for the water and sewer and storm sewer portions of those projects for those respective utilities. Those utilities would then pay for portions of the street. So the pavement and the base aggregate that goes in that street would pay for portions of it. So just in round numbers, if you do a mortgage revenue bond that's 10 million, there's still probably 3 million or $2 to $3 million of general fund funding that will still be needed to finish those projects, because we can't charge like if we do Third Avenue or Sixth Avenue, the one we cook out, we can't charge all of that street to the utilities because that's not equitable and fair. So just so you know that by doing a mortgage revenue bond, once again, you put a burden on too, but just so everybody understands that.
Yes, go ahead, Larry. Alder.
Yeah, is there possibility of just design and that's it in the budget this year?
We could. I think that's one we'll probably, hopefully maybe design in-house or something once we get to that point. So I hate to design it if we don't have any inclination we're gonna build it. I mean, I think if it came with somebody come in, we'd go back to the sewer and water utility and probably pay for the design that way if somebody came in 3 months from now and wanted to do a project.
The key thing right in my mind is we don't even have anyone who's expressing interest in doing the project, at least not as of today. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 30 is the South Kenny Coulee Lift Station Force Main Design and Analysis. This is identified to be funded through the sewer operating budget, so I see no reason why not to move this forward.
Just as a note, this was included. We've been having difficulties with the sanitary sewer force main at the South Kenny Lift Station that goes along South Kenny Coulee Road. Staff does believe they have it to the point where it's operational, and we're going to look at some other alternatives besides replacing the force main. So this, we're not moving forward with this currently. As you can see, there's no borrowing. So I'm okay leaving it in here, but just as a side note, this project may just disappear in its entirety once we move further ahead.
Okay. Anyone would like to remove it at this time?
I'll make a motion to remove.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion to remove by Alder Stevens, seconded by Jared Holter. Any other further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is a pedestrian study for the entire city. I think we might want to move this forward to next month, just based on some of the accidents we've been having in the city. And
Just as a side note, this project would involve, quite a bit of this would involve public input on different areas within the, just the whole pedestrian network within the city. Over the course of many years, we've ordered a lot of sidewalks in the city, pedestrian connections, things like that. They are probably the most contentious public hearings you will ever have at City Hall for installation of sidewalks. So, and right now, the only pedestrian plan we have is a map in Kevin's office that is hung on the wall that shows some possible sidewalk connections. This would give us documentation and public input on why and where and some of those things. So I understand it's another one of those things that, and this is one of the reasons I actually include some of the planning documents that support it, but just in general, we can't really include any pedestrian improvement projects without the plans, so.
would this not also include crossings?
Correct. That'd be the whole pedestrian movements within the city. It would look at
And what it
safety
costs.
concerns and stuff like that. Yep, yep.
Is there anyone who thinks we should remove it?
I did not have it in my list, but if the consensus is to move it forward, that's fine.
Yeah.
Can I just
Sabrina.
add something? Thank you, Chair. So I think the pedestrian study would be a great plan, but then should we hold off on the crossing improvements until we have a pedestrian plan to see if that would fit within the scope? I'm talking about item 27.
Yep. I believe that in my opinion, we've demonstrated need that would be demonstrated in the study. So I think, I guess it would be prioritized with other projects. It would go into it, but I think that the study, I'm relatively assured the study's gonna show it as a need with the public input that we would receive and we have received, so, I don't discount what you're saying. I agree with that, but I think it's already been shown.
Thank you.
I mean, in this moment, I'd like to leave them both in. Next month it might be different.
All right, let's move that forward then. For consideration again next month. Item number 32 is the Esford Drive retaining wall. This is the item that Grant mentioned to us during public input. It's a low dollar item. I have no problem leaving that until next month as we review again. Anyone want to remove it? All right, let's move that forward. We're now on to section 2, which is the planning department, which is 4 items. Item number 33 is the urban forestry in general. For $30,000. I have this on moving forward on mine. Is there somebody who has
Right.
been removed?
No, I can kind of take 33 and 34. The urban forestry generals are city tree planting. We do offer tree planting to existing homeowners, just replacement of trees. Every year we talk about the urban canopy and how valuable that is for stormwater improvements and urban temperature and things such as that. It's a great investment in I think our urban environment to keep both of those in. But as you can see, 34 for the urban forestry has a DNR grant attached to it. So we are receiving a grant that would pay for half of that. So
Yeah.
Katie, if you got anything you want to add at any point, you can go ahead.
I had both of them in mind too. Is there anyone who thinks we should be removing either 33 or 34? So they are kind of attached to each other, so. All right, let's move them forward. Item number 35 is the vehicle replacement.
Can I make a note on
Yes,
that?
go ahead, Sabrina.
So I did include this in the CIP, but sorry, not in the CIP, in the equipment replacement budget. I can definitely remove it. But there is currently 2 vehicles, and this would replace both of them. So there would be some savings with the
Yes.
selling of the 2 vehicles, which is why I felt it was appropriate to stay in equipment replacement as well. So
In equipment replacement, because right now it's under amount needed by borrowing.
So we can
correct. So we would
move it to the less other sources of equipment replacement fund.
I had it approved anyway, but yeah, I like that
Yeah.
plan better.
Yep.
Yeah, I talked with Katie this morning and then, it's we're getting a 1 for 2 in this case. We'll reduce our maintenance cost and all that as well. So,
Chair, what do we know what the usage or the 2 vehicles that we're looking to replace with the one, like, how old are they? How many miles, et cetera? I mean, do they need to be replaced?
Yeah, the one vehicle that's getting replaced is the main inspection vehicle by our lead building inspector, and that vehicle actually leaves City Hall every day that he works. It's pretty
Okay.
much out every day. We've actually cut the fleet back at City Hall. We used to have probably 10 cars at City Hall, and I say after this, we're gonna be down to 5. I think we're gonna be down to, we've cut quite a few back, so we have been trying to do your attention there, Alder Stevens.
sure. All right. Well, again, this is, if it's been moved over to funding from other sources, I don't see any reason why not to move it forward next month anyway. Is there anyone who has a differing view? All right, let's move on. Item number 36 is the greenhouse gas inventory, renewable energy plan. I do not have this on my list. I know that there will probably be some folks who do, but we'll have a discussion. So,
I move to strike that item.
oh, you
I'll
do.
Second,
All right, move to strike by Mayor Smith, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 36 is struck. All right. Item number, moving on to section 3, which is the fire department. I'm going to skip number 37 for a moment. I can promise we're going to come right back to it, but I have some options I'd like to discuss with that. But so under the, let's go through 38, 39, 40, and I'll come back to 37 unless anyone has an objection to that. Okay, item number 38 is land and facilities. This is to buy additional land for a potential future additional fire station. I do not have that on my approved list. Is there anyone who would like to keep that to move forward next month?
so I had a thought, if we don't have specific land lined up, is this something that we could do a lesser amount? And then potentially put some offers out, and if it doesn't meet the range, we've got that line itemed, and then, potentially add to it as different properties at different prices become available. So say, for example, what if we did 200,000 this year that we budgeted for it? And if we found something that was suitable for $200,000, great. Knowing that that's probably not going to be the case, then the following year we up it by another 200,000, and maybe by the third year we have 600,000. Like, do we have to do this all at once if we don't have the specific parcel, or like, we don't know how much the property is going to cost? So not knowing that, could we work our way up to it over time?
Mayor, and Sabrina, you'll be next.
Okay, just a couple things. Do you want to go first, Sabrina?
You can go first.
Okay. First of all, we're in the process of doing a study right now, so I think it's just important to highlight, that we do need to be looking forward, and that we likely will have to do something in the future that will involve, either relocating the station or having a second station. We've known this for 10 to 20 years. We've been talking about it. So I think it's important to have this in here and to have the discussion, but I also think that we need to understand that at any given point, if we decided to buy a piece of property, the city, we can do that outside of the CIP process. So just a couple comments.
Sabrina.
Thank you. So the only thing that I would add to Alder Stevens' point, we wouldn't want to bond for just a 200,000 arbitrary number for any project, right? I know that in the past, we've borrowed over 2 years, for example, the prior fire truck, which I would support doing that in the future, but we wouldn't want to do piecemeal, like especially for like the land, for example, we wouldn't want to do that over 3 years. Most of our bond proceeds have to be spent within 18 months of the bond issuance. So I would not support going piecemeal like that. But this is something that, as the mayor said, we could choose to purchase at any point within the year, or at the end of the year when we do get the staffing study, and I'm getting ready for our audit, we could reserve some funds for the fire service project at that time. We could restrict it, put it in a restricted fund within our general fund, saying this is going to be for a future land purchase. So that's something that we could do at that point.
Okay. So my concern on this project is if we were to expend taxpayer money on land for that purpose, now we have additional substantial monies that we'd be having to look at to build facilities on that land, to purchase equipment for that station, and to hire additional personnel in order to man that station. This is not just a $600,000 project. This is a many millions of dollars project potentially 10 million, maybe even, I don't know, but I got to imagine fire stations have special requirements that are above and beyond normal construction. So this is, this is one of these things we have to really look at holistically, in my view, on whether or not we're going to obligate any substantial amounts of money. We need to have a long-term plan for this if that is reasonable before we expend funds. So,
So
again,
as such.
what's that?
then, as such, and as the mayor pointed out, I mean, maybe we should wait for the study to go first before we move forward.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's, I just, unless somebody wants to argue and move it forward to next month, I just don't see any reason to do so. Anyone
I'll move to
disagree?
Strike.
All right. Second. So move to strike by Alder Stevens, seconded by myself. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item number 39 is the Rescue Unit 1 loose equipment. This one I have as a must fund on my list. Having a rescue unit without its fully equipment load is not reasonable in my mind, so.
I think part of it too, we're working with the fire department on the bid for the rescue unit is we've seen the costs go up so much in the last 3 years. And when they actually got it was 18 months before the bid when they actually got the quote for it. So the price increase ate up their equipment budget. So, instead of having a new truck with new equipment, they've got existing equipment, which is aged out. So
Yeah.
I think it would be good to get their equipment for their rescue unit.
Is there anyone who thinks we should strike this? All right, move on to item number 40, and we'll go back to 37. The dispatch office remodel. Do not have this on my approved list for this year. Is there someone who does?
I'll move to strike.
I'll second. Move to strike by Alder Stevens, seconded by myself. Any further?
Steve? I think part of this too goes into what's gonna happen. It should, I think there's a need over there. There's,
Oh, yeah.
there's 25-year-old room over there. So I think but we can see what happens in with the staffing study, but I think it can't be lost in the whole staffing study discussion too, of making sure we keep something up for.
Yeah,
what we
there's
have
not a
today.
single one here that I think is not a need. That's not the discussion here. It's what is the prioritization for what's going to fit within our budget cap. So again, we have moved to strike with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion passes. Now comes to a very high dollar item, which is number 37, the pumper tender truck. I think we need to have maybe a 3-year plan on this to get this. It'd be very hard to take a $1.425 million hit on any given year. But I'm wondering if there's any way to be setting aside funds to bank them to get that number reduced when we do borrow. Now I had another idea too, but what I just heard from Sabrina just moments ago was that there's an 18-month timeframe to obligate any bonded money.
So we have to spend a percentage of our bonding within 18 months.
Okay,
To like meet different qualifications for bonding to keep us in compliance with our bonds.
so you'll see where I'm going with this. If we were to expend some of it as a down payment or something like that, that would meet that.
Correct.
Okay, because speaking with the chief, I understand it's going to be a 3 to 4 year wait time to get this. There's some risk. But if we were to commit to doing this and start setting aside money on a 3-year plan, is that possible to do? I guess, I mean, this is, we have to have fire equipment. And we know that fire equipment is very expensive.
Steve, if I could just add, so if we bid out the piece of equipment, approve a bid, the council got to go on record to approve that bid and basically issue a purchase order, which basically says, you know, Sabrina, the finance director is going to sign that, and Rick, you're going to sign that saying we have funds on hand to purchase it. Now they're going to tell us that we're not going to get it for 3 years, so we don't need your money for 3 years, but
That's
you know-
payment on delivery is my understanding.
correct, but you know, do you really want to be having ordering something for that large, without having the money on hand?
Well, we've got the money in an emergency if we
Yeah.
have to, but I'd rather have a plan to get there in 3 years.
Right, and that's where, as I mentioned before, if it was the purview of the council to move some funds into a restricted fund, balance account to go towards either this project or the facilities project, that's one way to get there. And then in the future, say, let's say in 2026, for example, that, you know, we are going to fund this project. We put 200,000 aside or whatever that number may be. Now we want to bond for half of it and we're going to bond for the other half in the next year. That's one way we could do it.
Okay. So I'd like to see this move forward to next month for sure. And I'm wondering if we can get, you know, some reasonable options on how we can make this happen potentially by next month. Is that, what do you think?
That's a great idea.
I think it comes down to getting authorization to bid it out and having a financing plan, you know, I mean, you know, the other thing is typically the suppliers also we've done in the past is if we pay them when the truck, there's a variety of legal documents that we've had that an agreement that's signed, but they've given us a substantial discount too for paying
Sure.
up front. So
Well, yeah, any savings we have with money up front. Boy, okay. Yeah, just like more information next month, I guess. I mean, we can't have modern operational, fire department without a modern operational pumper and tender truck. So,
I know the mayor's got a comment, but could this be included with when you're talking fire stations and larger thought processes also?
That was gonna be my ask, like, can this be with the study that, you know, we need this new truck? And it's kind of a whole package of what we're gonna need.
well, if we wait a year, this would be a 1 year delay then on this, right? To get this study. So what that means then, instead of getting this pumper in 3 to 4 years, we're gonna be getting 4 to 5. Yes.
I would like to leave it in for now, and then that gives us 1 month to kind of brainstorm other ideas. But I'm also want to ask, we conclude with the fire department, if we can just take a small break.
Sure.
Thank you.
Danny, okay with leaving this in and getting more information next month?
More information is always good, but I just, I'd like to remind, having gone through when we bought fire truck number one, I know that we had a year where this was probably before Sabrina was there because I was dealing with Fred. Interest rates were really low and we kind of pushed, we knew that we were going to have to get the truck, and we exceeded the amount, and I believe Fred was kind of worried about what that would look like on he was concerned about the bond rate and everything like that, but it's I'm sorry. It seemed like for a large scale capital purchase like this, that you know, if you go over every once in a while on something that we know that we're going to have, that's it. It was less upsetting the apple cart than one might have normally thought. Now, that said, I think rates are a lot higher right now. So taking out, and I think they will continue to go down a little bit. So if we don't make the purchase right away, there may be some benefit to holding off for at least a while. In terms of just holding on to this in the budget till the next round for more information to come back, I have no objection to that.
All right, let's move it forward to next month then. And we will take a 10-minute break. Is that good?
Or 5.
5? Sabrina?
Before we break, just so you know, we are at $4,692,936.
Of which 1.425 of that is the fire truck. Yeah, so. All right, okay, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll make it 5 minutes and 5 seconds. So let's come back at 5:45.
So
Yeah. So folks, that was a 8-minute, 5-minute break. Let's try to get started.
Alder Stevens, you still there?
Try to get started, please. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, is Dan back with us?
He's on there, but
Dan, are you back with us?
Dan, you back?
He is. You're muted,
He's
Dan.
on there.
He's muted, though.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. I was just coming back from another room and took a sec.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Okay. So let's reconvene. Okay, we are on section 4, which is Parks and Recreation Department. Item number 41 in 2 parts, which is Glen Fox Park and Elmwood Hills replacement. This is a continuation from previous year's discussions that we had. There's about approximately 20 parks, I believe, purchased all within a year, many years back, and they're all coming up. And that, I personally think it's imperative that we start replacing 2 parks a year, or we're gonna end up with just having a bunch of parks that gotta get torn down. So, yeah, I've got both of those remaining on my list. Is there anyone who would like to see either or both of those removed?
I only had one on there, so to me, it was kind of an either or, but
Mayor, what do you think?
I guess I think it depends on what we do with the rest of the list. I mean, in one viewpoint, I mean, I believe these are ranked in order of the park board's recommendations, so I'd like to follow that as much as possible, but I guess I'd defer to Dan with.
So would you like to see him moving forward for discussion next month, or you want to hear from Dan now?
Either way is fine. I mean, I'd like to see him move forward to next month, and if
Okay.
Dan wants to say something, it'd be a
Oh.
good time.
Go ahead.
I mean, these are on the list. Both these playgrounds are installed in 1996. So they're 28 years old this year, would be 29 years before we would get them replaced next year. As our priority list, if we start, pushing this back, very similar to what our Public Works Director said, we're looking at 25 years to replace some equipment that's 20 years old now. So we need to, try to make this a priority to try to make it happen. I will offer one bit of advice or recommendation. This is in the order of the park board prioritized, but we feel very high on item 42, which is the next item. I'd recommend that we reduce the amount from 200,000 to 182.5 for both of the projects so that we could have the funding to make sure we do item 42.
Alder not.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Can I recommend that we do the sand play area upgrades as an equipment replacement item?
So.
And that we would keep the parks where they're at.
Okay. You have any problem with that, Dan?
No, I do not.
Okay, so that recommendation is keep them both at 200K. But then on item 42, move that 35,000 over to equipment replacement. Anybody have issues with moving 42 over to equipment replacement? We'll start with that. Okay, hearing that's not the case.
if we were to do both parks, could we be
Well,
looking at the
what would we
182.5?
vote forward to next month, if I heard, because I would think I would like to, and I heard the mayor say she would like to move, no, yeah, she's not.
Next month,
So let's move forward to next month, both of the parks.
and now the aquatic center also, because it's going to be equipment replacement.
Yeah. And then, so which brings us to 43, and I'll move to strike.
I'm gonna ask that we keep the volleyball court in.
Well, I
At
didn't
least
get a
until
second,
next
so
month.
that dies.
We do have some other source money with that item, so.
Okay, that's true. Okay, well, we'll move 43 forward then. Number 44, Wellington Greens Park Soccer Field improvements. Again, I'll move to strike. We'll see if we get a second on that one.
I'll second.
Okay. Move to strike by myself, seconded by Dan Stevens. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 45 is a splash pad. Now that shows $300,000 coming from other sources. What is that?
It'd be coming from the park fund.
Okay. I have no problem moving that forward if we have funds for it. Anyone want to argue otherwise? Okay. Item number 46 is kind of standalone. When we talk about trying to get down to a, $3.5 to $4 million budget, that does not include community center renovations. That's kind of a standalone. We have a different way of funding that. I mean, I assume that, is there anyone here who wants to argue to remove that? I didn't
So
think so.
I did have a question as to why that's in the amount needed by borrowing, because I thought that was already kind of a segregated, I thought that was old business.
Sabrina.
Thank you. It is, so we did a bond anticipation note until our borrowing, for this coming year. We're gonna wrap it into the CIP, which is why I've been pretty stern about saying between that 3.5 and 4 million, because essentially we're gonna borrow 8,
Yes.
7.5 or 8.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on. Police Department, number 47, and this is on standard cycle replacement, the marked police vehicles. Now, I have this on my approval, but with the new information we have about this being eligible for 20-year bonding, this would be one that I don't think would make sense to do that. So, since we don't have short-term borrowing anymore, how would we pay for those?
Well, that would be either it gets lumped in with the bond, as you mentioned, or we'd have to do equipment replacement funds for our police vehicle.
Would we have equipment replacement funds for this?
Prior to the changes that we've done in here in regards to like adding, the aquatic center piece, and I think there was one other one. I already had the vehicle for planning. We were at about $487,000. That's already being budgeted for 2025. So that would just be adding to that number.
And what would that do for our equipment replacement fund? I mean, is this exceeding what we really should be looking at on an annual basis?
In my opinion, in regards to the equipment replacement fund, every year we've been lucky enough to be able to do a transfer from our general fund, if we have a surplus to help fund the equipment replacement fund. But as we move forward and we increase revenues and increase line items, that's going to be less likely in my opinion. So I don't want to continue to increase equipment replacement to a large number if we're not going to have the ability to have an operating transfer into that fund. So we do have around $2 million sitting in the fund balance for equipment replacement. But I just think we have to be mindful of not putting $1 million in there and then maybe not having a surplus to transfer, and then we use half of the fund balance, if that makes sense.
It does to me. Anyone have questions on that? So,
So Chair, I think you and I might be on the same page here. I'm not really comfortable bonding for something for 20 years if I think it's going to last 8.
yes.
I like the idea of, if the state trust fund is no longer a thing, I mean, I think it makes sense to use equipment replacement fund, but then we're going to have to allocate more money towards that. And then maybe just self-amortize these types of debts. And if that means we have to borrow a little less on the CIP and fund it, I'm not even sure how I would do that, but it's, I think it's a bad idea to borrow something borrow for something for a depreciable asset that won't last anywhere near the time that it'll take to pay off that bond.
And I believe, and I will double check with our contact at Bayard, but I believe we can, for smaller projects, I think we can have a lower payback period of a portion of the bond. So I think that is possible, but I will confirm with Brad before we meet in November.
Mayor.
I'd like to leave this in as far as being budgeted, but to give it to next month for suggestions regarding if it's gonna go in the equipment replacement fund or if there's a way to fund it over a shorter period of time to stagger the way the loan is structured.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
at least we know we want to leave it. I know I want to leave it in for right now. So some of these details I think staff can work on. It's like, as Dan said, I'm not sure how to work that, but staff does. So we'll leave them. If they know what our intention is, I think it gives them more options to try to figure out what to do.
I had the
Yeah.
same thing. I wanted to keep it in there, but I think we just need to approach it differently.
this is one that I would have very high on my priority list overall. You dig a hole if you don't start replacing your fleet on its scheduled timeframe. So, yes, Diane Wolf.
Thank you, Chair. If Chief Ashbeck could give us possibly update, I don't think we've had one for a while, at least and to all of us. What is the current status of previously approved budgeted police cars? Because I know you were in the hole for quite some time there with backlogs, and this might be the appropriate time to kind of get an update. Thank you.
Sure. So our last two vehicles that we ordered are in, but have not been changed over. We are waiting on our outfitter, who has been working tirelessly to get the first batch of vehicles done. And now we're kind of on the backlog because he's put other jurisdictions on the backlog for the first half of the year. So we're now waiting, those two vehicles are just in waiting. Probably 3 to 4 months would be a more accurate estimate.
But at least any vehicles that have been budgeted, they are now all been ordered and been received.
Correct,
They may not be in rotation, but they are now ours.
correct.
Wonderful.
No.
Thank you.
I assume that any vehicle sales that then would come out of this, to get some thousands back, that would go into the equipment replacement fund? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I think
Okay.
we do have vehicles on auction
Yeah.
right now currently.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, let's leave it in, certainly until next month for sure. And, we'll have more discussions on options for payment on that too. This is going to be reoccurring as we get to more of these that are not going to last 20 years, which brings me up to number 48, portable radio booster, which I'm assuming also will not have a 20-year or plus lifespan. Could be wrong. I would certainly love to hear on that. But I also understand that this $100,000 estimate was only for one channel. So that cost will be higher. How much, we don't know, almost certainly less than double. But yeah, why don't I turn it over to Chief on that one too then? Just talk about the radio booster and about, the fact that the one channel was an issue that we just learned about. And I'd like to know how long we would expect that lifespan of any new purchase on that to last.
Sure. So in a nutshell, basically emergency services cannot communicate when we're in the Omni Center, given it's the structure of the building, neither in nor out essentially. And so we worked with a local company to get this estimate on installing basically a radio booster. And we didn't learn until essentially they were done testing that this only was for one channel, essentially for police, until having a discussion with them. They're like, well, does the fire need to communicate in there? I'm like, well, of course. And so they're like, okay, well, we need to go back and test fire. So they did come out and do some testing, and we've been waiting on the results of that. And
Okay.
there might be a delay because I just learned some news tonight that our salesperson is no longer with the company as of today. And so we will follow up with them and see what more information we can. This equipment, you know, there's probably, the most of it is probably electronics, but then there's other things like antennas that probably will have a longer lifespan, but electronics, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing too. Yeah, technology moves on, yeah. Sabrina?
Brad emailed me back right away. He said that we can pay back, based on the asset's useful life. So we could have it, so we are paying back the vehicles over 2 or 3 years, if that would be our
Oh.
intent.
On the 20-year bond, you can actually pay
Correct, like
portions
you
it
can pay
off
back-
at different pay schedules.
Correct.
Okay, that makes things easier. So I personally would like to leave this on, and the reason I say that is, I would not want to be a law enforcement officer, an EMT, or a firefighter inside of a large structure responding to any type of a call, not being able to call for additional assistance or whatever, because the communications just aren't there. Communications are everything to emergency responders, and I don't want to be putting people into that type of a safety situation. Difficulty on this, though, as we're moving forward to next month, is we don't know if we'll actually have what the final bid will be for additional channels. And if that's the case, it'll make it very difficult for this budget cycle, but I would like to leave it on for now. Sabrina?
Could it be something that potentially isn't on the list, but then it's brought forward to chief to F&P to fund maybe after
Outside of the budget cycle?
outside of it? I mean,
there's
that's an
always that,
option.
Chief Letty?
They just finished up probably 2 or 3 weeks ago testing at the Omni Center. I obviously haven't heard back yet, but hoping to hear back very soon. They should have that data.
Okay.
From what I understand, it's done by a different company than Baycom, so.
Okay. So, did you want to say something?
No, I
Okay.
was just.
So is there anyone who would like to remove this without further review next month when we get more information?
I just have a question.
Yes, Jared?
So, what do we do in the schools and Walmart and everything like that? Do we have the same problem? Where's this gonna end?
Chief Letty?
I can answer that. What's going in the Omni Center, what they're proposing is a bidirectional amplifier. And a lot of states have the ability to, when there are new construction, to implement those into the new buildings, because it's a lot cheaper to do when you're constructing a
Okay.
new structure like a Walmart or a Fleet Farm or something like that. Something with a lot of glass and a lot of metal reflects the waves, the radio waves, which doesn't allow penetration through. Unfortunately, Wisconsin has written in the state statute, at least in the fire code section, that they kind of struck that out of the NFPA fire code, unfortunately. So we cannot make new businesses put these in, but in general, after 9/11, most states and most large facilities like this automatically have a BDA put in, a bidirectional amplifier.
Yeah, well, we do have control over our own Omni Center though, so I can't worry about what outside entities do or don't do in their buildings, but I can worry about what we do or don't do, so that's just me. So again, is there anyone who wants to argue to strike this from consideration next month? All right, next. The EV charging station, which is new. So I did not have this on my approval. I talked to chief and got some more information from them that I need to review, so I'm willing to leave this on to next month. While I look at some of the data he's showing me, because I just got it today. I haven't had a chance to review it. But yeah, so I mean, what is everybody else's desire?
I'd like to leave it in. I think there'll be a cost savings that will, I don't know what the return. I think we should leave it in.
I had it in as our as some of our fleet was becoming at least hybrid. And that seems to be more of what it's going to be in the future. So if there's a cost savings to boot, then It's a pretty small dollar amount for added functionality.
Well, along with that, eventually is going to come an electric vehicle or at least one, but yes, okay. All right, we'll leave it until next month. We'll discuss it again. Number 9 is the police department storage, which is a very high dollar item. This is for storage of evidence, things of that nature as well. I know that the police department and Alder Jurassic have been looking at alternative options. So would either of you like to talk?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, today I talked to the individual that owns several different properties down on the far end of Bryson Prairie. He has 3 buildings he's looking to either rent or sell. One of the buildings is a 40 by 70 in size. And he's saying that he would sell those for 225 to 250,000, depending on what we wanted in the building, what type of heat we want, things like that. Or we could lease it. And he said 3 to 5 years is fine with him. He's looking about 1,500 a month.
Okay.
That's, we just had a short conversation on it. I thought I'd bring it up here tonight.
Yeah.
Everybody know what the possibility of this.
And that's in Bryce Prairie?
What's that?
That's in Bryce Prairie?
Yes. On the far north end.
Sabrina?
I just wanted to note that if you do decide to lease, you would have to find 18 grand in our operating budget to pay for it
A month.
a year.
I thought it was 1,800 a month.
1,500 a month, he said.
1,500 a month.
1,500 a month. Okay. All right, and then if we move forward on this in either way, doing a design build, purchasing a fairly new building, you said they were, just 3 years old, all right. We would have to also outfit it with certainly security measures because you got, issues like chain of custody of evidence and things of that nature too. So there will be additional costs. But we do have a challenge on this. Initially, with the $1.2 million price tag, I had it as not being approved. I would like to, about 3 others we have, I'd like to move this forward to next month while we look at some of this additional information that Larry has looked into. And if we could also, I don't know if we can do that in 30 days or no, but kind of get an estimate of how much it would cost to outfit it to where it would meet, I don't know, judicial needs. I don't know what else to say it. I mean, but obviously storing evidence that is not admissible in court would not be good. So, Sabrina?
Chief, have you had a chance to look at this?
No, this is just, Alder Jurassic and I have talked about it, but this is new information tonight on it. So I would ask that, I think over the next month, we could go on site, look at it, see if it would even possibly meet our needs and maybe come up with some kind of estimates that it would take to retrofit it.
Mayor?
My thoughts are, we could look at leasing something, but we don't have room for $1.2 million period, and this should probably be struck. If we want to lease it and it's coming out of a different budget, we can cross that bridge when we come to it. Also, if we do lease something, my preference would be that it stays within the jurisdiction of the city of Onalaska.
Mayor?
Okay, I have a couple of different concerns with this. Starting out, first of all, we have a CIP process that we go through. This is a set budgeting process that we go through every year where the items are fully vetted out and they go through a process. And Jared spends countless hours with the assistance of everyone else to bring these to this point. And so I think it's difficult to have, and also inappropriate for people to bring last minute information up and then to have it be suddenly discussed. I think it needs to go through that process. And furthermore, I am questioning the appropriateness of Alder Jurassic to be going out and talking to people in the community about potentially the city leasing their property when that's not something that's been vetted out or a directive from the community as a whole. The community of the city hall employees and the council and myself, the mayor. So I have many problems with all of that. These are just a couple of them. It's fine if you want to let it hang on to next month, but I want us to follow our process, which we've been using for years and has been successful. Thank you.
Yep. Well, I certainly won't want us to create alternative processes, but, and again, any kind of new information, if this had been a month later, would definitely be too late. But the process we have does allow us an additional look. I mean, we've built in like an extra look inside of our own process right now, so it doesn't really undermine anything. I mean, I agree with you as a whole, Mayor, that we need to stick to our processes and we don't want to be learning bad habits here by what we decide here. Yeah, I won't be able to support a $1.2 million project this year either.
I'm gonna make the motion to strike.
In which case, you'd be looking at alternatives for next year. It sounds like if we just strike it out as a whole, unless we do something outside the budget cycle.
Well, and there's also the fire study that's going on, which may have some kind of resolution that could include incorporating this into it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'd like to hear from Jared one more time before we, as the primary person putting.
Well, I guess, obviously I would agree there's a storage need for various entities, fire, police, public works. I mean, we're all, I'd be all in favor of police getting storage because then some of the things would public works would be the ancillary benefit of some of their stuff moving. And the fact that their evidence right now for their caged evidence area should be 3 or 4 times the size it is now. I guess I don't know how, I'm sure there's a way we could get internet to the building, but we're gonna have operational costs with the offsite building with IT cameras and things like that that got to get vetted too, that aren't gonna be just,
Yep.
small. So having something that's not already at a city site just makes those things come up on top of it. But we definitely need the storage. I do agree with the mayor. Depending what moves forward facility wise, citywide with the fire department and everything else, maybe there's something that could be added, but there's a need now. So however we can meet that need.
Well, I mean, we don't have a motion yet, but I've heard 2 folks, it sounds like they want to strike. I'm willing to strike, but then I would really encourage Chief Ashbeck to look at alternative options as well. And we can maybe, if we get something solid, move forward outside of the budget process in 2025 or identify that in the 2026 CIP. Sabrina?
Chief Ashbeck, would you prefer that it stay on so you can evaluate this option?
I guess personally, yes, only because the fact that it could just as easily be struck next month, but at least if it stays on and we come back with new information, albeit I understand what the mayor said, so I don't, I want to respect that as well. But
Okay, well, I've got one Alder Stevens. It sounds like he's already would like to strike.
I just don't think it's feasible. I mean, it's
Yeah.
1.2 million is, I agree that there's a need. Perhaps if there's a study, I mean, there's a way that we can, between fire and police and public works, I mean, maybe we could have in some future design, some multi-use building that serves many functions, but
Mayor brings up a good
I
point.
don't think that we have the ability to do that this year.
The mayor brings up a good point that with the fire study, one might come up an option too. Yes, Chief Ashbeck.
just the last point I would make, and I realize every project's important again, but as we had spoke this morning, our current space is tied up with a fatality, a homicide that we may have for years, and we have sheriff's department storing a fatality vehicle for us right now. So we are actually over capacity. So we have anything else that happens. I mean, we at any point, the sheriff's department is going to be, calling us saying, get your vehicle out of there. And we have nowhere to go. So that's my only concern is if we keep talking like, well, maybe 2026, I mean, it could be tonight we have another fatality. And so there's just a little bit of sense of urgency. Like I don't know if sheriff's department's going to take another car for us.
Yeah.
So.
I think the leasing ideas are a good option. And
Oh, I
we don't have to borrow for that. We just have to budget for that. And if it's push comes to shove, that seems like it's, I mean, 1,500 a month or something in that ballpark would be a lot easier for us to manage than,
Yeah.
you
Let's-
know, some-
1,500 a month plus what other outfitting that needs to happen. I'd like to think that internet and stuff would already be out there. I don't know. But any storage unit normally already has cloud-based security cameras, at least on the exterior anyway.
You're gonna need a full security system that's integrated into the city IT system though, so it's gonna be it's gonna be more complicated and expensive than just putting up a camera and hooking it to the internet.
Yeah, I don't know what the requirement is. I mean, I know that there is a requirement. I have no idea what it would be. Sabrina?
And I think Alder Jurassic said it would be between 225,000 and 250,000. Is that what you said? So we're not looking at potentially 1.2 if Chief is able to go and do some more research on this.
Yeah, and if it's even suitable, we
If
don't
it's
know
even
yet.
suitable.
Yeah,
I don't think it's realistic to think 1.2 is going to be something we can even have in this budget
oh, I agree.
anyways. I think we've had a good discussion and we should just let it go till next month, but
Okay,
I mean, if it comes to a vote, I'll join with the group.
okay. All right, let's let it be until next month.
Isn't there a motion on the floor though?
I'll withdraw my motion. That's fine.
No, okay.
Yes, Alder Jurassic.
Do I get permission from you to contact?
I think right now you turn it over to Chief to take this over. I mean, it's great that
What I'll
you
do.
provided this information, but yeah, that we don't want to let the police department do the work from now on.
That's what I'll do. It was just brought to my attention and I thought I'd bring it forward.
Alternative means that are more affordable. I mean, I'll take that information from any citizen, so.
Thank you.
So, okay. All right. That moves forward for now. Although Sabrina, I guess you'll have to annotate that as 1.2, but we know darn well from what we've heard from all three of us, it won't be approved at 1.2, so. Okay. Okay, Omni Center, item number 6, or excuse me, yeah, it's not item number 6, it's the next,
It is Roman numeral 6.
Roman numeral 6. Item number 51. Now, the Omni Center, just like Parks and Rec does, they do prioritization recommendation from internal to their own staff on this. So these are in 1 to N order from 51 to 58. So first off is the upgrading the HVAC controls at 160,000. That is their number one priority. I do have that as being moving forward on mine. Is there anyone who wants to remove that?
I did not have it included, but. if it
What's
goes-
that?
I did not have it included, but if it goes to round 2, that's fine.
Okay. Item number 52 is event equipment. And again, this is revenue generating stuff in the end. And that is something that's identified as coming from their tourism budget. So that wouldn't require any amount of borrowing. So I have that on moving forward as well. Anyone want to argue otherwise? Okay. Item number 53, the restrooms with electric hand dryers. That also, it is not on our sheets, but Dan, my understanding is as of this morning, you're willing to put that out of tourism budget as well?
Yes, I am. With the amount of events, things that we have, one of our complaints we get is our cleanliness of our restrooms, and a lot has to do with our paper towel dispensers and things. And if we can get hand dryers, that would clean up that space.
So, is there anyone, with the understanding that that 22,500 would come out of the tourism budget? Is there anyone who wants to argue that should not move forward?
I would just add that it's tourism reserves, not their.
Correct.
budget,
Tourism
just so you-
reserves.
Just so you,
Well, words matter. Thank you.
thank you.
Right. Then item number 54, which is the mezzanine level deck and the storage shed. So basically it's taking the existing shed and adding a mezzanine level onto it. I do have that on my move forward as well. Is there anyone who thinks we should not move that forward next month?
I do not have it included, but again, if it goes forward to next month, I have no objection.
Obviously, we have a lot of hard decisions we're gonna have to make.
Well, and this just helps with the whole storage
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
It uses an existing building, but increases the square footage of storage.
I'm gonna make this simple for discussion and I'll kind of just open it up.
I'll get Dan.
Oh, Dan.
Steve, the one thing I'll recommend is this is also an item that I think we can take out of the tourism reserves.
Oh,
This is the amount of activity and things that we have coming in with the inventory that we need to have for the events and things. I believe it's something that could come out of there.
Sabrina,
Maybe not our finance director, but that's a recommendation.
I'm fine with that.
you're fine with it. Okay, well, then that makes that easy then too. So we'll move that over into the tourism reserves. And is there anyone with the understanding that would, that 80,000 would come out of tourism reserves? Is there anyone who thinks it should not move forward? All right. So again, this is where I'm gonna do this a little differently. Item 55 through 58. It just makes it easier for me when when these are prioritized 1 through N already. I would recommend that all 4 of those not move forward. Is there anyone here on 55, 57, 6, 57, 58 that they would like to argue they should move forward?
I guess, can I get Dan on the chiller? I know it's, I know how, I don't know how you're gonna fund it, but I just want you to just, when it breaks down.
Yep, I mean,
Need to
so
be
you know,
fair.
where we're really looking at two, you know, we have two. We have the air conditioning unit in Arena One. So when we have dry floor events and things like that, that's what that 600,000. So that one, you know, we probably have just as much maintenance as we do for the chiller in Rink Two for the 1.1 million. So these are both very big ticket items that, again, as we've heard and the board has heard multiple times tonight, we got to find some type of a source to fund these at some point in the future.
Agreed.
So that's, you know, we're bringing it up because, you know, there will be a time that myself or Brian will probably come before you and say, it died and, you know, we don't have options here. So it's
And
just, you know, doing our due diligence.
The AC unit in Arena One's original from the building.
Correct.
It's from 1991.
And that unit is a water system. So like this time of year, Brian really likes it. When the temperatures dip below be freezing at night, we got to drain the system. But if we have a big event going, then we got to come back and fill the system. And we have to kind of leapfrog and play the weather that we have going on. Now, we've done that since 1991, but again, that's original with the building.
And the chiller for Rink Two,
That was put in 2011.
but
It was a used
used
system
unit.
when they put that system in.
Dan Wick, if I could, my understanding is, when these were initially installed, they had the option where you could get kind of one mega chiller that maybe cost more, but it was less than the price of 2 individual chillers. And the route that the city went, probably because they're going through the process that we're doing tonight, it was easier to break it up over multiple years. So are we looking at just redoing like one chiller, or do we have the opportunity to have some, I mean, it would be an expense, but it'd be some cost savings down the road to replace both chillers at the same time?
Well, we wouldn't want to do that because the one chiller was purchased in 2017, installed in 2018. So one chiller's, but at that time we did, I think we spent, don't quote me, between 700,000 and 800,000 on that chiller. And at the time they wanted just over $1 million that we could have put a bigger chiller and that could have fed both units, both sheets of ice at that time. But they chose to at the time is to get the one unit for Arena One. So that we would be undersized if we tried to make ice in both arenas with the current system that we have. So we need to look at a separate unit for that Arena Two.
Okay. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Chair. Not to take away anything that either Jared or Dan Wick is saying tonight, but please note that Brian Babish is in the audience tonight and he's taken the time to be here tonight and I haven't talked with him. I don't know whether he wants to add anything tonight,
Sure.
but I would certainly ask the board to consider calling on him if you have any additional questions because I mean, he has spent the time to be here tonight. Thank you so much. Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, Brian, you're welcome.
Brian, you're on the spot.
You're on the spot.
Make your pitch.
Dan and I did talk a little bit about chillers today. You know, and knowing where everything is at, it's one of those things, okay, how do you handle it? Where do we go with it? Upgrades and changes in chiller philosophy and how people are chilling. The arenas have changed so much in the last 5 years and they continue to change. That, you know, as soon as we didn't make the first chiller bigger to handle both sheets of ice, I think that we're definitely in a situation that, you know, is when we feel that we're to the point that we absolutely have to make a change. I mean, we baby it along now. We do little things to it all the time to make chiller for Arena 2 work. But at some point it is gonna say we've had enough. But right now we use R22 in that chiller. And that will not be an option when we go forward. So when something major goes wrong with that chiller, we will have to make a change with it. But there are different options now that, you know, to use for different gases and getting away from Freon altogether. So, you know, those might be options for us in a year or two, but if it doesn't go forward at this point, that would be the thought process. We just keep looking and evaluating what our best options are. The chiller for Arena 1, for the air conditioning, 2 totally different type systems. So I don't think you can piggyback one to the other one. They would be totally different. We're making glycol in the back arena at 90 degrees. In the front arena, we're trying to run it at 60 degrees. So there's no way to try to compensate the two. So that wouldn't work.
Okay,
Thank you for that, Brian.
thank you.
Okay,
So
so
is there anyone with the air conditioning unit, the ice sheet chiller, carpet entry or Omni Center backup power generator that would like to keep any of those on?
I mean, it's,
What's that?
the Omni drives a lot of tourism and tourism is able to, I mean, we've seen several other items where they've been able to self-fund, but these are some big ticket items. I mean, I see both sides. I don't think we can afford it, but if they go out, I mean, what's our plan then? I mean, at some point, we're gonna have to bite the bullet. Do we do it
Well,
in the planning
clearly.
process or do we do it as an emergency response?
Yeah, well, clearly, every one of these is a true need. Again, that's not the issue here. It's what can we afford for 2025? Mayor, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I would at this time support removing these 4 items. And I think that the important takeaway here is that we may be in an emergency situation at some point before we fund this. But I also feel like, we'll be okay to wait, as long as we understand there may be an emergency.
Oh, we assume risk on anything we don't fund. Case in point was the generator for the city hall that was not approved. And then about 6 months later, we had to find outside budget how to do it because we had no choice. So, Sabrina.
I was just gonna ask, I don't know if this is for Brian or for Dan, but last year we had approved the architect work in regards to an expansion. Is that something that they would evaluate as well, like in regards to the chiller or no?
They're not. They're looking at more concept designs of the facility, looking after those options if we'd look to expand.
Okay.
They're not getting into the details of the heating and plumbing and all of that.
Do we have a motion?
We do not. I'll go ahead and move to strike item 55, 56, 57, and 58.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Motion by myself, seconded by Mayor Smith. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to the library. Item number 60, the flat roof replacement. Again, this, Brian could probably bring us up to speed on this too, but my understanding is that roof is at the end of its life cycle. It is not leaking now, but we would like to, at the end of its life cycle, get it replaced before it does. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. Right now, we currently do not have a leak in it. The rest of the roof in that building has been replaced with over the last 5 years. So that's the last piece of roofing that has not been taken care of. So that's why it's on the capital improvement budget.
Yeah, top priority.
Was that roof put in as part of the 2008 edition, or that was before? That was in already, wasn't it?
That would have been part of the addition because it's over top of the meeting rooms.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's no way to make this into like a 2-year, break it down incrementally. I mean, this would be all one and done.
Right,
That's why-
yeah. it's
I assume
one-
that, yeah.
One flat sheet, yep.
Yeah, I assume. So I do have this on my remain. It's again, one of my top 2 priorities after public safety is to maintain what we have. Is there anyone who thinks we need to remove that? All right. Moving on, item number 61, table and benches in the teen area. This is a new item. It's a low dollar item. I do not have it on my list to move forward, but I'll entertain discussions on this. And of course, at any time, either Dan or Brian, you're able to chime in on something. I mean, the whole idea is we aren't the subject matter experts on everything that's out there. If there's, you think we're really missing the bill, please step in. Is there anyone who wants?
I did not have it included. I mean, it's only, you're right, it's a low dollar amount, but I would move to strike.
I'll second.
Diane?
Thank you, Chair. Sabrina, is there any dollars left in the library fund?
I think there is, but I think maybe I'll turn it to Dan if that's something you'd want to use from the library fund or something that, you know, we leave some dollars in there for something in the future that may be more needed. But
I mean, these are a few of the benches. They're kind of like booths that you see at a fast food restaurant or something that is kind of in there that they take an abuse. I think it's tough for us to say with some of the funds that are left over with the project that we want for more capital expenses, or when Brian has larger errors or, issues that come up to have it versus some of this, benches and things like that that are there. So I don't know if it would be the best to utilize that with the remaining funds that we have left.
And thank you, Dan. So are you possibly suggesting, without saying it, possibly 63 would be a more appropriate use of the, it's more of a capital?
Correct.
Not to put
Yes.
words in your mouth, but I.
Yes,
just
no, I
looking
mean,
ahead.
more capital things that we can use, for the expansions
Right.
that, things are always coming up. When you have people in a
Right.
public space, things happen.
Yeah.
And so we have time or funds available when Brian comes and says, hey, this went out, or, the door closures aren't working, or things like that, that we have it, that we can use it with.
Right. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I guess, so this is not something you would want to use those funds for? No, okay, yeah. All right, so once again, I know it's a small dollar item, but a bunch of small dollar items will add up into big dollars. I do not have that on my list for this year. Is there somebody who wants to keep it and move it forward for consideration next month? Okay, I'll move to strike item 61.
It's
I'll
already
second.
been,
Oh, yeah, that's right, you
already had
did
it,
move. I'm
already
sorry,
had it,
I'll
yeah.
second it. It was not seconded.
Uh,
yet. I'll second it.
Yep.
All right, so any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 62, also do not have this on my list for moving forward next month. Is there somebody who wants to argue to keep it?
I mean, I want to keep it, but I think we need to prioritize the roof, and then that doesn't leave us much left there.
That's kind of where I was thinking too. I want to keep everything, but we can't afford 19 million, whatever $1,000 we got on here. All right, so, yeah, okay, so I'll move to strike 62.
I'll second.
Motion by myself to strike, seconded by Sabrina. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 63, concrete walkway to staff picnic areas, ADA. This is a new item, for again, low dollar, $8,000 item. Again, I do not, I'm prioritizing the roof replacement at $200,000 is what I'm doing. So I do not have this on my moving forward next month. Is there anyone who would like to keep it?
Make a motion to remove item 63, the concrete walkway.
Okay.
Motion to remove by Jared, seconded by Mayor Smith. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to Norman numeral 8, which is items 64 through 68. No, there's more, 64 through 71, I'm sorry. So we have some higher dollar item here ones. But the very first one at $400,000, we have this elevator getting stuck with people in it many, many times a month. So I do have this on keeping. But is there anyone who wants to argue to remove?
I did not have it included, but I was unaware that it's swallowing up people, so.
Ryan, can you tell us exactly what's gonna happen? A little bit, just a 30-second.
The long, short, quick story is, right now, the elevators were on a time period where I could go every 90 days to reset them. Now we're getting at about 80 days and I have to reset them. So right now I have it set that right. So hopefully 75 days will be a sweet period and I can reset them at 75 days and then we won't have anybody get stuck in them. But you never know with usage, if it gets used a lot, all of a sudden 75 days might turn into 70 days or 71 days. So we have a program that we're able to purchase to be able to reset the elevators. These elevators only work that way. In the past, when we had the service contract with the people that provided the elevators, they did that on a monthly basis, kind of didn't tell us they were doing that. They just did it. That was just part of their process. But then we had a new service agreement. We had to come up with a game plan of resetting the elevators. We were able to purchase a program to do that. And the program, when it started, it was a 90 days. And, if they're not used much, 90 days is probably plenty. But, right now, I think a sweet spot for us is at 75 days because they can decide not to work after you get in the elevator. And then we have to have our guys from the other side of the building come and help.
Yes, Joe. Can you take one of the speakers? Yeah, just for minutes purposes.
So the program, I've seen it on Brian's laptop a few times. It is an archaic program itself. And eventually we are going to get to the point where it's not going to run on newer equipment. So we do run that risk. Eventually this program won't be able to interface with the current laptop and the current system that's down there. As a victim of having a bag of tools in the elevator and not myself, it is, I can imagine how scary it would be for people to be stuck in there. So just know that because we do have this program and he can currently reset that, might not be the case next year.
Roger that. And just for minutes purposes, that was our IT director speaking. Thanks, Joe. All right, so is there anyone who would argue to remove it? Okay, moving on to next month. Item number 65 and 66 are similar, but with radically different costs. So 65 first is the building envelope project for the wall flashing. Just want to remind folks that this is a ongoing process that was initially a very high dollar item a couple of years back, and that has was agreed that we could break that down into increments. This is the next increment. I believe we spent about $250,000 last year as well, if I recall right, or no? We not? We did. Yeah, I thought so. Okay. But this is a maintenance issue to prevent things like water damage. So Brian, why don't you enlighten us on that too?
Kevin probably can add some on to this too. We had our contractor do some flashing work for us. The hard part is, I think the work they did is tremendous from what they showed us in the wall, and Kevin can kind of speak to that too a little bit. The damage that was in the wall and what they found in the wall when they ripped the walls apart and the work that they did, I think are gonna solve some of those issues. We don't know until we get rain. Everybody knows we haven't had a lot of that luckily. But you know, we can only hope that this is absolutely gonna be the answer to our issues like on second floor, the hallway out. We haven't done anything with the hallway out by the mailboxes, but out here in the end of the council chambers where we had water damage too.
Now, my understanding is this is the last increment, or do we have one more?
I think the total flashing that the estimate that we got was some over $1 million to do the entire building.
Okay, so this
And
would
so
be the
there's
third of
sections of it
four.
that we're just trying to get done. And I think, Kevin, handled the bid process this year to start the process and work with it. Now that we've bid it out, now we have a little bit better understanding how much we can do.
Okay.
We bid out a smaller increment because we didn't want to get too far ahead and have it not work. We
Okay.
bid out a smaller increment and then we're just analyzing the results, as Brian said, and then hopefully moving forward, continuing on. But we did not expend all of the funds that were from last year, but I think it was cut down from the original amount. And then we wanted to have enough contingency because once again, we just didn't know what to expect. And we can't, it's a destructive item. We gotta take it off. Once you got it off, you gotta fix it. So.
Yeah. Is there anyone who would like to remove that? Mayor?
I just wanted to ask if maybe between Kevin and all of you, you can just help us prioritize these a little bit, because we're already starting out at 400,000 for City Hall, and we really need to, we're going to have to cut a lot more things out. And just in comparison at the Omni Center, we got, if you count everything, maybe 250, 300,000. We're already at 400,000 for City Hall. So I think we're going to be able to do all of these things listed here. So just kind of putting it back to you guys to help us prioritize. So you have a chance to do that.
For the city hall side of it, the park board kind of put those in a order that we had talked about that night. The top two being probably the most important. And then from there on, it's the 50-ton AC unit is we know we've had some issues. Again, knock on wood, we haven't in the last year or so. But window replacements are something that will have to happen. Does it happen to happen this year or next year? But it's going to have to happen.
Okay, then hearing that, I would say like for this section for City Hall, I feel like we should just do the first two and then remove all of the remaining ones.
Dan, is that good with you?
I'm not making a motion, I'm just having.
Yeah, no, I know, I
And
understand.
in theory, I don't have a problem with that.
Sabrina?
Could I offer an opinion in regards to maybe we keep a couple of the smaller ones and maybe use ARPA dollars for them?
So you're talking like item 70 and 71, potentially item 60.
Or like
Brian has.
69 and 71 or whatever it may
the
be.
back there.
Just a thought.
Okay, Brian?
The one thing that I would add to my comments before, the 70 and 71 were not part of what the park board would have saw. But the interior painting that the police department has added to the capital improvement budget is something that I think is something that's very well warranted. Original paint to the building, and that area gets used so much. I absolutely think that that's one of the spaces in the building. Before long, it'll all need to be painted, but it's really showing its wear in the PD hallways.
Okay.
So how much ARPA do we have left that we need to commit by the end of this year?
I believe it was around 55,000, but give me 1 minute.
And again, my recommendation, when we had that discussion in the past, is that we actually commit that to projects that are above that, just to make sure we
Yeah.
use it all. And
$52,428.92. But we will evaluate a couple other projects that are kind of getting to their end of life. Like one of them is the generator, for example. So it's around 53,000.
okay.
But that's something we could designate at the end.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't pick a project specifically for that because it could be most of these.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's,
I wouldn't keep a project because of that.
yeah. And we could put it as just an example towards the marked police vehicles, and that's less short-term we have to worry about, so. Yeah, but that's just one example. I mean, the whole idea though is we don't want to choose $52,000 in projects to use $52,000 of ARPA, because if they come in under, then we left money on the table.
Correct, but it is easier for me for reporting purposes if it is one project or like a couple of projects
Right.
that would be spent before the end of 2026.
Roger. So, again, the discussion, we haven't had a motion yet, but the discussion we're having is is there a general consensus that we should remove the remaining, or I'm losing my,
Be 66, 67,
60
68.
66 through 71 for next month. I mean, I heard Brian, so I mean,
Brian
I'm
wanted to
open to
leave
leaving the
that.
12,000
Yeah,
in for,
same.
okay, so.
I'll just make a motion, and if it
Okay.
doesn't get a second, that's fine. How about we'll just stick on the front page, the page 7. I'll say that we should remove 66, 67, and 68. And that's my motion.
I'll second. So a motion by the mayor, seconded myself to remove items 66, 67, and 68. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Opposed? That motion passes. So moving on to the last page here, item 69, landscape replacement, and I'll move to remove item 69.
I'll second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then I'll move to remove item 71.
second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Is there any way we could do that in the equipment budget? And it's kind of like the carpet at City Hall. Eventually it's gonna have to get done. I mean, the carpet at City Hall, we're still incrementally doing it. It'd be one increment.
There is some carpet in the CIP, but in the equipment replacement budget.
I moved it to equipment replacement to try to get it funded because we have to do it.
Okay, well, that'll influence how I vote. We do have a motion in a second, so we have to move on it. But so what I'm hearing though is you could do that out of the equipment replacement? Is that what I heard?
Yep.
Well, it's just that we're getting a lot of things now moved to equipment replacement, so that it causes a different problem. I mean,
Well,
I
we can
feel like
revisit
we
all that.
need to evaluate what our total is. There already, I'm assuming there already are items designated to come from before this night, there
There
were
was.
already things budgeted that way.
I
And so
agree.
now we have what was budgeted, and now we've added over $400,000, I think. I'm not sure the number.
It was over
But
400,000
like,
already.
it's too much. Like, we
Agree.
can't do it. I'm not gonna agree to it. I
But it's-
mean, in
this
this
is a-
one
a-
individual item, perhaps, but in a whole.
Yeah. Well, we're not approving that these things are being funded by the equipment replacement. We're moving them forward for consideration next month based upon that.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we'll have to make some hard decisions to include our equipment replacement fund next month too.
Well, we've got
So,
a
but we're not,
But yeah, motion to remove it. So let's just.
So we got to move on that first is what I'm getting at. So,
and this is for 71, right?
yes, so now we'll be voting no on that just so that we
Sev-
can move it
70 or
forward on the equipment
71?
Replacement fund for further consideration next month. That's
Which is
what we'll do. So anyway,
No, I thought.
So we have a motion and a second to remove item 71 from consideration next month. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay.
No,
Nay.
we decided we were gonna leave it in.
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll leave it in now with consideration potentially of equipment replacement fund, but
Okay.
doesn't mean it's gonna stay. So just, yeah, just the way it is.
So item 70 is staying
Yes.
on the list. Item 71 is
also for now.
for equipment replacement.
Yes.
Okay,
But
just want to make
again,
sure I'm on the same page.
we're gonna have to look at that equipment replacement fund items next month too. Cause I'm.
Yeah, well, it will come forward in the common council budget. That will be submitted next week.
But it won't be able to be in there.
It will be in there.
What?
I'll add it in there. Cause it gets
Okay.
approved
So
with the
those hard
operating
decisions will have to
budget.
Be made next week then, not next month. with-
But we're not.
Well, next
acting on
month,
that
yeah, we
budget.
won't act on the
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're just.
budget.
Got it. Yeah. I
till
got it. So
November,
we
but-
can look.
I feel like that's problematic because
It
if
is a little
you,
bit.
if you take the ones that we designated tonight and you take them out of here and you put them on there, then that means they're not coming back. If they get taken off the equipment replacement, we're not even gonna do it. And some of these, like the vehicles, we wanted to look at,
Other options?
you know, maybe shorter term borrowing. There's too many variables. I think the budget is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just saying, I think the operational budget, which includes the equipment replacement fund, is already completed. And so these changes, if they were to happen here, would be like an addendum in the future that we would have to act on. You wouldn't go and stick them back in right now, right?
My thought would be that I would put them in now, since you haven't gotten the budget yet. But if you were to take them out, like it would be approved with the CIP budget in general, then I would take it, I would remove it. And in the past, what I've done is when we've made the final cuts in November, and if we've moved stuff to equipment replacement, then I've added it to the operating budget. But if you would like me not to add anything at this point, I can definitely do that.
Well, yeah, I wasn't, I didn't have that understanding. As we were voting on a lot of this stuff too. So as an example, the squad cars, knowing now that we can actually take a 20-year bond on them and pay them off in 3 or 4 years, I would actually recommend we don't put that in equipment.
Right, and I
replacement,
didn't,
But that's.
I
not what
don't
we
think
voted
that
on.
was what was approved. I think it was kind of left on how I have it, left
Oh.
as
Leave
still
it
needed
there.
borrowing, but that we would have further discussion.
Okay, so we did not.
Because,
They moved to.
but all these equipment things, we didn't remove them.
Correct.
Let's. So I'm wondering, let's finish up this, and I'm thinking we may have to go back and review all of the equipment replacement
Let's
fund
do that.
recommendations before we depart tonight.
And
We adjourn.
like I said, I can definitely keep equipment replacement the way that I currently have it, and I can wait to add any additional things.
After
until
next
the-
month.
Correct. I can do it that way,
Okay,
if that's what you would prefer.
I think so. I think.
Can
we
you
need to redo this.
easily say, we don't need to know details or anything, but the amount identified in the equipment replacement in the existing,
It's
not
about,
counting today, previously?
it's about 400 and I think 87,000.
Okay, thank you.
But I did have a couple, well, one of the items, the planning vehicle, I already had an equipment replacement.
Okay, so I like Steven's idea about finishing to the end to number whatever it is. And then just kind of, we'll do a regroup. So make sure we communicate properly.
We are getting there, but I think that's, yeah. So let's, yeah, so at this point, let's leave it 71 on with the understanding that it may be under equipment replacement fund. We'll have to review all that. Okay, moving on to 72. Extension of the city fiber optic cable network, well number 9.
I would say we would address that as part of the mortgage revenue bond if we moved it forward.
Say again?
I would say that we would address that as part of the mortgage revenue bond or funding for water and sewer projects moving forward. So I would make a motion, we remove it from the capital improvement budget.
Okay, I'll second it.
So the stuff that's going to mortgage revenue bond, we're removing?
You removed all the utility projects already.
Okay. I'll second.
Already did.
Oh, I'm sorry. My brain was already over in a different
Sure
area.
did.
Strike 72, seconded by myself. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 73, the downtown dash park security camera. I do not have that on my move forward list. Is there anyone who wants to keep that on for consideration next month?
I think that there's a need, especially if you have some migration of like homeless people heading more towards a residential area, but this may not be the year to do it.
Okay. All right, then I'll move to strike item 73.
I'll second.
Motion by myself to strike, seconded by Sabrina Steger. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 74, fob door controllers installed at Omni Center. Obviously, it's a security issue. I'm not real clear on how serious it is. So I don't know if this would be Joe or is it going to be Dan who would talk this?
So part of this is security related, like we don't have any way of tracking anybody, what rooms they're going into once they get beyond the front door. And in some instances during the day when the front door is open, there's areas of the building that remain unlocked for ease of access, so somebody doesn't have to go and open up a banquet room or whatever. So by doing the fobbed entry across most of the building, we can give people assigned access to it. It'll be essentially kind of like what we're going to be doing for the community center. So if a group needs to come in to use an area, they can use it without us having to have staff there to unlock the door or give somebody a key that maybe gives them access to areas we don't want them to have access to. This includes like the data closets that are there. There are people, even our own employees, that shouldn't have access to where those data closets are, and they do. So at least knowing who's going in and out of those rooms would happen with fobbed entry. So.
I have a question. Right now at the Omni Center, if people are renting a space, isn't there always staff on hand? Like, it's not like when you rent the old community center or the future community center or a shelter house. Is that correct, Dan?
That is a good assumption right now, yes, but I think what we're looking at with the fob system, we may not necessarily need that. That somebody could have a fob to get in and they could get only into the spaces that they are supposed to. Right now, with some of the spaces, doors that are open and we can't lock and things like that, that we would be able to do.
So you foresee that if this were to be funded, that it could actually save you some staff cost?
I believe it would definitely help, yes. And we wouldn't be handing out keys. Right now we have so many coaches and things that we issue keys to and stuff. Do we always get them back? It's much easier to give them a fob or something that they can get in and, know exactly where they're going in the building.
Mayor.
Another question, were these listed in order of priority, Dan?
The park board did not look at this. This is something that Joe has put in through the process.
And be honest with you, a lot of these projects are, as you can see, they're carryovers, so they've been on here for a while, but
And I will be honest, if we wait a year, with the new community center coming on board and using this fob system there, how it works and, it's going to be an education process. I'm completely fine in doing that, but it's something that Joe and I have talked and the staff at the Omni Center have talked extensively about.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. And I do basically support it. It's just, difficult. But I like the idea of, knowing that this is going to be in the new community center, because then it might open our eyes to additional places where we do or don't want the fob entry to be. So at this point, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we remove item 74.
I'll second.
Motion to remove item 74 by Mayor Smith, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 75, the extending the fiber optic system.
I can talk a little bit to this, but in discussions with Joe, just trying to, we've got empty conduit to get the fiber system that we've through the school district out to East Main Street, trying to get to more facilities and things. This is a long-term goal. I don't think I don't think there's anything right now that, specific need yet, but I think that over time, we're going to want to try and extend it throughout the city to get more facilities and things on board. So like I said, offer it to Joe, but it's,
I think it's also a redundancy thing
Yeah.
that we're trying to get. So
Yeah, part of this would be like, right now we have just a single piece of fiber going from north to south, connecting all of our buildings. Part of this too would be able to build an artificial ring so that if we do have a construction cut or sometimes these things get damaged by flooding, things like that. So anything like that would be protected against having the Omni Center and Public Works be cut off from the rest of the city. Sometimes with some of those fiber cuts, it can be a week before you have internet service. The other thing too would be when we talk about possibly a new fire station, like where is that going, and making sure that we're planning ahead and getting fiber to the areas of the city that we already have existing conduit. I know Chief Ashbeck has wanted a security camera at the intersection, I'm gonna say over by Goodwill, but Evergreen Elementary, that intersection there, so.
okay. So it's probably should have, but at this stage with the amount of dollars, I don't know that I see it as a must-have for 2025.
I'll make a motion to remove item 75 to extend the fiber optic system.
Second.
Motion to remove by Jared, seconded by Mayor Smith. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Sabrina.
With the new community center coming on board, will we have to change anything with our fiber optic? Or will it be connected because it was already connected? I don't know.
Luckily, we went within 50 foot of the building already with the old, what we put in the first time.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Right?
Opposed? That motion passes. All right, city administration, up to the last couple here. So city signage. First off, 76A, outdoor signage, highway wayfinding, tourism, light pole banners, park facilities, etc.
So I can talk a little bit about this. This is just with our new Livana branding and everything. We have, as it states, a variety of highway signage and wayfinding and like the banners and this bunch of facilities that just, we have a variety of signage that we wanted to bring all into the same motif, same colors, same branding. I don't even know if 75,000 would be able to do all of it, but it would get us a long ways toward that. And then item B is for the sign out front, we would install a digital sign where the city hall sign is, that's branded with the Livana, and it also would have the digital capabilities.
So with the outdoor signage, 76A, that is something we obviously could do incrementally, I would think.
Mhm.
So this is one we could consider for, well, like you said, more, that amount or even less.
With the tourism aspect, could part of that be funded by tourism?
Could for the wayfinding signage. I know the original wayfinding signage that we do have, that was funded partially with tourism dollars a number of years ago, because our wayfinding signage is outdated. It's been up quite a while, so.
But I think some of the signage for the Omni Center, wasn't that from the county due to the tourism aspect of things as well, if I remember correctly?
So, with A, is it prudent then to have it move forward right now? And then let's take a look by next month, what we can find through tourism that could apply to it and what couldn't, and we can have a better idea of what fund.
Yeah, I would really like to see this stay in. I think it's something that people comment to me about quite, I mean, not continually, but it has definitely come up, I mean, at least 3-4 times, even within the last 6 months. Especially in one person said we should have signage like home in. So
Well, certainly, I think we need to be moving forward on it. Question is how
I
much.
don't know if it needs
that
to be like
decision next
home, and I'd
month.
rather have it be like on Alaska, but I'd like to see this stand.
Yeah, I agree at this point, yeah. Diane?
Thank you, Chair. Sabrina, do we have any dollars left over from the county funding when they gave us, was it 75 or 100 for the rebranding?
We
Or
do
is that all?
not. We don't have any of that remaining at this time.
And I apologize, Rick, our city administrator, what was the plan to ask for county for budgeting for 2025? You had put in a request
A request was put in for $150,000 towards the community center.
towards the community center. Okay. Okay.
And some part of this is also putting up some signage around the community center itself as well too,
Right.
on the street lights and street signs as well too.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so let's leave A in then for next month, and then we got the city hall sign with the branded digital sign. Definitely think this is a very nice thing to have. Don't think this is the year we should do it. And we're just, I mean, I think we're gonna be in shock when Sabrina tells us where we're at right now. So,
Not.
so, I think this is, something we might want to kick out at least one more year, but that's just my recommendation before we have many motions. Any other discussion on that one that, as far as a consensus? Before I make a motion? Sabrina?
No, I mean, we did have, we put a lot of effort.
Hold up,
into
Dan.
it.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I guess my only thought is, we did do the branding and the branding was an ARPA project. Then we did the website and this just kind of like puts it all together is my only thought.
Totally agree.
So I'd kind of like to leave it on just for that purpose.
Dan, go ahead.
I guess to build off of Sabrina, I mean, we put a lot of effort towards rebranding. And that's like, if you're gonna do that, you should exercise that brand. And then the digital aspect, I mean, that is a way that we can relay some information to people if it's just flashing across as they're going to Main Street. I understand that this may not be the year, but I'd like to see this go to round two.
Well, we can leave it until next month, but we are going to have a lot of decisions to make next month.
Understood.
All right, so we'll leave it on. Before we get back, revisit the equipment replacement fund items. Where do we stand with the borrowing items?
Including or not including the community center?
Not including the community center. We know that 4 million is done deal. So not including that.
And includes the fire truck, right?
And
It does include the fire truck. It does include 1.2 million, which we know will not go forward that way. So I mean, you're at 2.625 or something like that right off the bat, but yeah, we know that we'll have to come up with alternative means for that stuff, but go ahead.
So including both of those right now, we're at $7,768,436.
We missed our goal of getting down to 5.5 million or less on the first swag by 2.25 million. But that's all right. We cut out about, if I was at 12 million, right? Yeah, 12 million. So it's moving forward. But we always know that next month is when the really tough decisions have to be made, and we cannot spend anywhere near that amount of money. It will break the bank. So okay, so let's move forward with that for next month. Let's go back and revisit equipment replacement. So do we want to go through these line by line again now, or do we?
Or just hit those. The first one I think was number 11.
Correct. Number 11 was on the list.
Yep, number 11.
I don't think
So
11
maybe-
was one.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, it was.
Maybe Sabrina, do you want to say what you have since you
go
have
ahead.
to be the person who does all the tallying?
Yeah, so
give us the
number
numbers.
11, I had adding to equipment replacement. And then I had,
23 was
That
already
was
there.
23 was already there. 35 is already there as well. So then we added item 42 for the aquatic center, sand replacement. And then we had discussions about the marked police vehicles, but I hadn't moved them yet. So they were part of that large number that I gave you. And then lastly, item 71.
And the total amount is what?
1 second here.
The ones that weren't already included in the equipment budget, correct?
$198,000.
98?
Oh, because those, it's not as bad as I thought because those other ones were already in there. So you were right.
So it's 198,000 that we currently have tagged for equipment replacement.
Right.
2 million. So 10%.
But there's already 487,000 in there.
Oh, that's gonna go forward next week.
So that would
Right,
be
after
added
47.
to this.
Yeah,
That's correct.
which would be too much.
And the number 11 also be the short, paid off sooner if it was bonded, like the police vehicles?
That is correct. Number 11, you could do that, but
That-
I think though the boom truck would
That-
last for quite a
That
few
vehicle would
years.
actually last 20 years, so I wouldn't have a problem bonding for it.
Okay.
So let's,
I actually have it in that bonding number right now.
you do.
I forgot to move it. I wrote it next to it, but I didn't move it. So it is in that bonding number currently.
Want to leave it in bonding then for consideration next month? Yeah, all right.
I'm fine with that.
That takes it down.
That takes it down to 50,000 or.
Yeah, 50,000, which I feel comfortable with.
Okay.
Okay.
And I
Alright.
can
Yeah,
add
but-
that if you would like.
Yeah, and so then if I'm more comfortable with your first plan, it was when I thought it was 400,000 that I was.
Yeah,
freaking
no,
out.
I'm sorry if that was confusing. It's just we
Yes.
already have 400,000.
Yes, and that's where I went wrong. Sorry about that.
So, and you have no problem adding 50,000 to that?
No,
So we'll leave number 11 in as consideration for bonding next month. Which what you said actually was already in your 7,768,436 figure. And then that leaves the equipment replacement fund additions at 50,000, which sounds like you're comfortable with. So I think for now, our first look is done, and this is always the longest one, but the most painful one is next month. So thank you, folks. I know that that's been a long 4 o'clock to 7:15. All right. so
Aren't you glad we started at 4?
Yes,
If we
100%.
would have started at 7.
Yeah, so, do we expect any of these other ones to go exceptionally long? If so, I'll take a 5-minute break again, but if we think they're gonna be done in 10 minutes.
I think they'll go fast. They'll
Okay.
go fast. Yep.
Okay,
Hammer it out.
so let's move on to item number 6, the City Hall Generator Project Change Order number 3. I'll turn that over to Jared.
Included is change order number 3 for the City Hall generator project. This was also for part of the startup of the generator. It was in the project scope that the generator startup was going to be on a Friday. And due to IT needs, not shutting things down and everything, we actually moved it to Saturday, so it all happened concurrently. And by doing that, but we had to pay an extra $2,800 to do that. I think Joel attests that it was well worth the $2,800 to not shut down City Hall for the day, so.
So the total additional adjustment is $2,835.
Correct, and we do have that as included as part of the project contingency.
I
Okay.
move to approve that change order number 3, $2,835.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, the state municipal agreement for County Road SS 12th Avenue South to Crossing Meadow Drive. I'll turn that back over to Jared again.
in your packet tonight is a state municipal agreement with the DOT. We see these quite often on these STP urban projects. If you go to page 23 of your packet tonight, you can see that we're estimating a total project cost of $639,195, of which we're getting federal funds of $379,100, which leaves its municipal cost of $260. Part of that is the funding that we have within the capital improvement budget for the design and state review. Also with that, we do not, as part of that estimate, have any cost for intersection improvements at Double S and 12th. So as part of the scoping of the project, we'll bring forward the Board of Public Works and the council at some point of a recommendation on what if anything we'll do with that intersection. But if we would do anything with that intersection, it would raise the project cost in 2028. Recommending approval for the agreement.
It's approval for what is the amount? I'm confused.
The state municipal, we'll need approving the state municipal agreement, but it does show a project cost right now estimated at 639,195 with federal funds of 379,100 with a municipal funding cost of 260,095.
What is the full 260.95 you're looking?
We're not actually,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
just to approve the agreement.
I,
Just to approve the grant.
I'm-
Approve the agreement.
I move that we move forward with approval of the agreement as described in the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion to approve by Mayor Smith, seconded by Sabrina Steger. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8, City of Onalaska Community Center Project Change Order number 1.
This
Yeah.
change order has material testing. It was not included within the project scope, so we do need material testing. That is the majority of the change order at $17,039.22. And we also have installation of a outlet at the 6th and Quincy Lift Station, which will be for facilitating them hooking up the trailer, job trailer, which is on that side of the road, but we will actually end up with the outlet when we're done, which is going to be nice to have for staff to do work at that building. So we are splitting the cost with them on that. So requesting a total change order of $17,889.22 for the project, of which the testing was already figured into the budget. It just wasn't included with the bid.
Where's the additional fund coming from?
It was included.
Contingency.
Got it.
I move that we approve the change order number 1 for the community center project as described by Jared and in our packet.
Second. So motion to approve by the mayor, seconded by myself. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8 is City of Onalaska Community Center.
Oh,
I'm sorry, number 9, pay estimates. Notice on the pay estimates, we did have a new one that was handed out. The addition is number 14 on solar connections. I'll move to approve the Public Works monthly estimates.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by the mayor. Any additional discussion?
Note that there are 14 and it's
14.
dated October 1st.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. And we move on to the utilities portion, which item number 10 shows there is no report. So we are on to item number 11. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Mayor Smith, seconded by Sabrina Steger. Any discussion?
Before we adjourn, could I ask, will we get like a revised copy of what we have as a current tally, either redlined or with the removed items?
Yeah, that'll be part of your packets,
Okay, thank you.
the November council meeting or November Board of Public Works meeting.
I'd like to request we get that at least 2 weeks out if we could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. All right, we have a motion to adjourn with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I have 7:20. Thank you, everybody. It's always a long one. I know that.
Thanks, Dan.
I didn't want to ask him the name. So this.
Well, the length of these have really reduced.